Hey story enthusiasts! This is Ben 10 What If bringing you another gem. In this video, we present to you what if Ben 10 never found the Omnitrix. If you enjoy these stories as much as we enjoy sharing them, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Let's dive in. Chapter 1, The Summer That Changed Everything. Ben Tennyson slouched in his chair, watching the clock with the intensity of a hawk tracking prey. Only 3 minutes left until summer vacation officially began. The June heat seeped through the classroom windows, making his shirt stick to his back. He tapped his pencil rapidly against his desk, burning a glare from his teacher Mrs. Henderson. "Mr. Tennyson, perhaps you'd like to share with the class what has you so impatient?" she asked, folding her arms across her chest. Ben straightened up. "Just excited for summer, Mrs. Henderson. My grandpa Max is taking me and my cousin on a road trip in his RV. "Well, that sounds lovely," she said with a thin smile. "But until that bell rings, you're still in my classroom." The second she turned back to the board, Ben rolled his eyes and returned to clock watching. The minute hand clicked forward, and his heart raced. 2 minutes. He couldn't wait to escape this prison of education and homework. This summer was gonna be epic. The classroom door burst open as Principal Griswold stepped in. "Mrs. Henderson, a word." While the adults whispered by the door, Jamie Perkins leaned over from the desk beside Ben. "Hey Tennyson, what are you doing this summer? More lame video games in your basement?" Ben grinned. "Nope. Cross-country road trip with my grandpa. Probably gonna see the Grand Canyon and stuff." "Sounds boring," Jamie snickered. "My dad's taking me to space camp. You know, where future astronauts go." "Yeah, well," Ben started, but the bell's shrill ring cut him off. "Freedom!" Someone shouted from the back of the class, and suddenly 25 fifth graders erupted into chaos, stuffing papers into backpacks and racing for the door. Ben scooped his belongings into his bag without bothering to organize them. He'd made it halfway to the door when Mrs. Henderson called his name. "Ben, a moment please." His shoulders slumped as he walked to her desk. "Yes, Mrs. Henderson." She handed him a sealed envelope. "Your report card. And this," she pulled out a small trophy with a plaque reading, "Creative Writing Award, Benjamin Tennyson. For your superhero story last month. Very imaginative." Ben took the trophy, surprised. "Really? Thanks. You have quite the imagination, Ben. Perhaps this summer, you could channel some of that energy into reading the summer book list I provided?" "Yeah, definitely," Ben lied, already backing toward the door. "Have a great summer." He bolted before she could say anything else, racing through hallways now filled with shouting kids and the sound of lockers slamming. When he burst through the front doors into the sunshine, he spotted Grandpa Max's RV, the rust bucket, parked across the street. Ben sprinted over, clutching his trophy. "Grandpa Max." The RV door swung open, and there stood his grandfather, tall, broad-shouldered, with kind eyes and a Hawaiian shirt that seemed permanently attached to him all summer. "There's my boy." Max swept Ben into a bear hug. "Ready for adventure?" "You have no idea," Ben said, climbing inside. Then he froze. Sitting at the small dining table with a book was his cousin Gwen, her red hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a blue cat shirt he'd seen a million times. "What's she doing here?" Ben demanded, pointing accusingly. Gwen looked up with equal dismay. "Grandpa, you didn't say the doofus was coming." Now, Max chuckled, closing the door behind Ben. "You two are cousins. This summer is about family." "But Grandpa," they whined in unison. "No buts." Max's tone left no room for argument. "We're going to have a fantastic summer together. 3 months on the road, seeing all the wonderful weirdness this country has to offer." Ben flopped onto the bench across from Gwen. "Fine, but she better not mess with my stuff." "As if I'd want your gross boy things," Gwen retorted, returning to her book. Max settled into the driver's seat. Seatbelts, kids. First stop, Yosemite National Park. The engine rumbled to life, and Ben felt a surge of excitement despite Gwen's presence. Maybe this summer wouldn't be so bad after all. He pulled out his handheld game console and lost himself in sumo slammers as the suburbs of Bellwood gave way to the open road. Hours later, Ben's eyes finally needed a break from the tiny screen. He looked up to see dense forest out the windows. "Where are we?" "Almost to our campsite," Max called back. "Should be perfect for stargazing tonight. There's supposed to be a meteor shower." "Cool." Ben peered out the window. "Maybe one will crash and we can see a real meteorite." Gwen snorted without looking up from her book. "The chances of actually witnessing a meteorite impact are astronomically small, Ben. Most burn up in the atmosphere." "Nobody asked you, nerd." "Grandpa, Ben called me a nerd. I'm just stating facts." Max sighed from the driver's seat. "If you two can't get along, we can turn around and spend the summer at your Aunt Vera's condo complex." Both cousins fell silent immediately. Nothing was worth that fate. The rust bucket trundled down a dirt road and finally came to a stop in a clearing surrounded by towering pines. A wooden sign welcomed them to Silver Creek Campground. "Home sweet home for the next few days," Max announced, parking. "Ben, help me with the awning." "Gwen, want to set up the picnic table?" As they set up camp, Ben's stomach growled loudly. "Grandpa, I'm starving." Perfect timing. Max pulled out a cooler. "I've been saving something special for our first dinner." He produced what looked like blue-tinged eggs with purple spots. Gwen stared in horror. "What is that?" "Marinated turtle eggs." Max beamed. "A delicacy in some parts of the world." Ben's face turned green. "I think I lost my appetite." "Come on, you two," Max encouraged. "Part of the adventure is trying new things." Somehow, they survived dinner, mostly by feeding their portions to a grateful raccoon when Grandpa wasn't looking. As twilight deepened into night, Max unfolded 3 camping chairs. "Meteor shower should start any minute," he said, pointing to the darkening sky. "Find a good spot and look up." Ben lay back in his chair, amazed by how many stars he could see away from the city lights. The forest around them hummed with night sounds, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of pine. Maybe having Gwen along wouldn't completely ruin things. "Whoa!" Gwen suddenly pointed upward. "There's one." A streak of light blazed across the sky, followed by another. Soon, the night was alive with shooting stars. Ben watched open-mouthed as dozens of bright trails crisscrossed the darkness. "This is awesome," he breathed. "Each one of those is a tiny piece of space rock burning up," Gwen explained. "Some are no bigger than a grain of sand." For once, Ben didn't mind her know-it-all attitude. He was too captivated by the cosmic light show. Then something changed. One of the streaks grew bigger, brighter. It wasn't fading like the others. Grandpa?" Ben pointed. "Is that normal?" Max sat up straight, suddenly alert. "No. That's not part of the meteor shower." The bright object was now clearly visible, growing larger by the second. Its trajectory shifted, and Ben realized with a jolt that it was heading directly toward them. "Get down!" Max shouted, lunging forward and tackling both kids to the ground just as something enormous roared overhead, so close they felt the heat of its passage. A deafening crash echoed through the forest, followed by the sounds of splintering trees and a ground-shaking impact that sent birds scattering from the canopy. For a moment, they lay stunned on the ground. Then Ben scrambled to his feet. "Did you see that? A real meteor. It landed right over there." He pointed toward a faint orange glow visible through the trees, maybe half a mile away. "We gotta check it out." "Absolutely not," Max said firmly, standing up and brushing himself off. His expression had changed completely, Gone was the easygoing grandfather, replaced by someone Ben hardly recognized. Both of you, into the rust bucket. Now. But Grandpa, Ben protested. Now, Ben. Max's tone left no room for argument. Reluctantly, Ben followed Gwen into the RV, watching through the window as Max retrieved something from a locked compartment beneath his bunk. When he straightened up, Ben gasped. Is that a gun? Max quickly tucked whatever it was into his waistband, covered by his Hawaiian shirt. Stay here and lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me, understood? Where are you going? Gwen asked, her voice small. To check on that meteorite. Make sure it didn't start a forest fire. Max headed for the door. Can't we come with you? Ben pleaded. No. Stay put. And with that, Max was gone, disappearing into the darkness toward the crash site. Ben waited approximately 30 seconds after the door closed. I'm going after him. Ben, no. Gwen grabbed his arm. Grandpa said to stay here. Didn't you see? Grandpa's hiding something. He has a gun, Gwen. Since when does Grandpa Max carry a gun on camping trips? Gwen bit her lip. I don't like this. Me either. That's why I'm going to find out what's going on. Ben twisted out of her grasp and headed for the door. Fine, Gwen sighed, following him. But only because someone needs to make sure you don't get eaten by a bear. They slipped out of the RV, locking it behind them. The forest was dark, but the distant orange glow provided enough light to navigate toward. They moved quietly through the underbrush, following the path of destruction left by whatever had fallen from the sky. It couldn't have been a meteor, Gwen whispered as they climbed over a fallen tree. Did you see how it changed direction? Meteors don't do that. Maybe it was a UFO, Ben suggested, only half joking. Don't be ridiculous. They continued in silence until the glow grew brighter. Ben held up his hand, signaling Gwen to stop. Ahead, they could see a clearing that hadn't existed before. Trees had been knocked down in a perfect circle around a smoking crater. And standing at the edge of that crater was Grandpa Max, speaking into what looked like an oversized, high-tech watch. This is Max Tennyson, former plumber operative, reporting an unidentified crash landing at my coordinates. Object appears to be, hold on. Max leaned closer to the crater, then jumped back as something moved inside it. Ben and Gwen exchanged wide-eyed looks. Plumber. Their grandfather was a plumber before retirement. A mechanical whirring sound came from the crater, followed by a series of clicks and beeps that no Earth technology would make. Max raised his weapon, definitely not a normal gun, and aimed it at the crater. Identify yourself, he called out. More whirring and clicking, then a voice spoke in a language Ben had never heard before, all harsh consonants and impossible sounds. Earth language protocol engaged, the voice suddenly switched to English, though with a strange metallic quality. Assistance required. Pursuit imminent. Slowly, something rose from the crater, not human, not even close. It stood on 3 legs, with a bulbous head that seemed too large for its spindly body. 4 arms extended from its torso, and its skin gleamed like polished silver in the glow of the still smoking earth. Ben couldn't contain his gasp. The alien, because what else could it be, swiveled its head toward the sound, revealing glowing blue eyes that fixed directly on their hiding spot. Additional Earth organisms detected, it announced. Max whirled around, his face a mask of shock and fear. Ben. Gwen. Get back to the rust bucket now. Too late. The alien raised one of its 4 arms, pointing a finger that suddenly extended like a telescope, revealing a glowing tip. A beam of blue light shot out, scanning the bushes where they hid. Young Earth organisms. No threat detected. The alien retracted its finger and turned back to Max. Are these your offspring, Max Tennyson of the Plumbers? My grandchildren, Max answered, lowering his weapon slightly. And they should not be here. Nevertheless, they are witnesses now. The alien made a sound like gears grinding. I am Tetra, technical engineer of the Galvan Science Academy vessel Quantum Leap. We were attacked. I was forced to eject in an escape pod. Attacked by whom? Max asked, his posture still tense. Vilgax. Max's face went pale. He raised the strange device to his mouth again. Max Tennyson to plumber command. We have a code red. I repeat, code red. Vilgax is in Earth's solar system. Ben couldn't contain himself anymore. He burst from the bushes, ignoring Gwen's attempt to grab him. Grandpa, what's going on? Who's Vilgax? Why are you talking to an alien like it's normal? And what's a plumber operative? Max closed his eyes briefly, as if in pain. Ben, I'll explain everything, but right now, a deafening roar cut him off as the night sky suddenly blazed with light. Looking up, Ben saw an enormous ship breaking through the clouds, its hull bristling with weapons. It was at least the size of a football field, shaped like a manta ray with glowing red markings along its surface. They found me, Tetra said, its mechanical voice somehow conveying fear. We must flee immediately. The ship's underbelly opened, and smaller craft began descending, sleek, predatory things that looked designed for hunting. Run! Max shouted, grabbing Ben's arm. Back to the rust bucket. They sprinted through the forest as the smaller ship strafed the trees behind them, beams of energy cutting through wood and earth like it was paper. Ben's heart hammered in his chest. This couldn't be real. Aliens weren't real. This had to be a dream. But the heat from the energy blasts and the sting of branches whipping his face felt all too real. Somehow, Tetra kept pace with them despite its strange three-legged gait. The Chimerian hammer, it explained between mechanical pants. Vilgax's personal warship. He believes I possess the Omnitrix. The what? Ben gasped as they ran. Not now. Max pushed him forward as a blast hit a tree directly behind them, sending splinters flying. They burst into their campsite, the rust bucket's metal frame gleaming under the harsh lights from the ships above. Max fumbled with the keys, flinging the door open. Everyone in. They piled inside, Tetra folding its body into a surprisingly compact shape to fit through the door. Max slammed it shut behind them and dove for the driver's seat. Strap in. The engine roared to life as two of the hunter ships descended directly in front of them, landing on the dirt road and blocking their escape. Humanoid figures emerged, wearing armor that made them look like walking weapons. Their faces were hidden behind masks with glowing red eyes. Drones, Tetra said. Vilgax's foot soldiers. Hold on. Max shouted, slamming his foot on the accelerator. The rust bucket lurched forward, straight toward the drones. Grandpa, what are you doing? Gwen screamed. The RV slammed into the drones, sending them flying. Ben expected to feel impact, but instead, a blue energy field flickered around the rust bucket's front end, protecting it as they plowed through. What the? Ben gaped at his grandfather. Modified alien tech, Max explained grimly, steering them onto the main road. The rust bucket isn't exactly factory standard. The hunter ships pursued, firing energy beams that rocked the RV. Max swerved expertly, avoiding most of the blasts, but one hit their rear bumper, sending them fishtailing. We cannot outrun them, Tetra stated, clinging to the table with all four arms. The Chimerian hammer can track my pod's energy signature. Max grimaced, then made a hard right turn onto a barely visible forest path. The RV bounced violently as they left the road behind. Tetra, can you mask your energy signature? Max asked. Temporarily, yes. But I require materials. The alien's blue eyes scanned the RV's interior. This vessel contains useful components. Take what you need, Max said, just don't disable anything we need to drive. As Tetra began dismantling a microwave and what looked like an old radio, Ben sidled up to the front passenger seat. "Grandpa, what is going on? Since when are you friends with aliens? And what's a plumber operative?" Max sighed deeply, eyes still on the treacherous path ahead. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Ben. The plumbers aren't what you think. We're an intergalactic police force tasked with keeping Earth safe from extraterrestrial threats. I was an agent for most of my life before retiring 10 years ago." Ben's jaw dropped. "My grandpa is a space cop." Max corrected. "I've been retired since before you were born." "And Mom and Dad know about this?" "No," Max said firmly. "Your parents have no idea. I've kept them in the dark to protect them, just like I tried to protect you and Gwen." From the back, Gwen spoke up. "So these aliens, they're real? And that big ship is hunting Tetra?" "Not Tetra specifically," the alien answered, its 4 hands working simultaneously to connect wires and circuits from the dismantled appliances. "They hunt what they believe I possess, the Omnitrix." "You mentioned that before," Ben said. "What's an Omnitrix?" Tetra's mechanical eyes whirred as they focused on Ben. "The most powerful device in the galaxy, perhaps the universe. Created by Azimuth, greatest of all Galvan minds, it can rewrite the DNA of its wearer, allowing them to transform into any sentient species in the galaxy." Ben's eyes widened. "You mean, like a shapeshifter? That's awesome." "It is dangerous," Tetra corrected. "Too dangerous. Azimuth regretted creating it and decided never to deploy it. But rumors spread that he had sent it away from Galvan Prime for safekeeping. Vilgax believes I know its location because I was Azimuth's assistant." "And do you?" Max asked sharply. "No. Azimuth trusted no one with that information." Tetra connected 2 final wires, creating a small device that pulsed with blue light. "But Vilgax will not believe that. He has spent years searching for the Omnitrix, destroying anyone he believes might lead him to it." The device in Tetra's hands suddenly emitted a high-pitched whine. The alien placed it on the floor of the RV, energy masking field activated. "We should be temporarily invisible to their scanners." Max slowed the rust bucket, pulling into a dense thicket of trees. "He killed the engine and lights. We'll hide here until they move on." He turned in his seat to face Ben and Gwen. "I know you both have a million questions, but right now we need to stay quiet and still." Through the windows, they could see the hunter ships circling overhead, searchlights sweeping the forest. The massive Chimerian hammer loomed above, a dark silhouette against the night sky. "If Vilgax believes the Omnitrix is on Earth," Max said quietly to Tetra, "he won't leave until he finds it, or confirms it's not here." "Correct," Tetra agreed. "And when he discovers I do not have it, he will assume I have hidden it somewhere on this planet. So we're basically hosting an alien invasion because of a device that isn't even here?" Gwen whispered incredulously. The searchlights moved closer to their hiding spot. Everyone held their breath as one passed directly overhead, illuminating the interior of the rust bucket for a brief moment before moving on. "The masking field is working," Tetra observed. "But it will not last long. The power source is insufficient." "Then we need a plan," Max said. "We can't outrun them, and we can't hide forever." Ben watched as his grandfather, no longer just the quirky RV enthusiast with weird taste in food, but a former alien fighting space cop, formulated a strategy. It was like seeing him for the first time. "We need to get to Mount Rushmore," Max finally said. "There's an old plumber base there with communication equipment powerful enough to contact Plumber Command directly. They can send reinforcements." "How far is that?" Gwen asked. "About 1,000 miles, Max grimaced. "And we'll need to avoid populated areas. Vilgax wouldn't hesitate to destroy a city if he thought it would help him find the Omnitrix." Ben slumped against the window. Just hours ago, his biggest concern had been sharing the summer with Gwen. Now they were running from an alien warlord searching for a device that could transform its user into different aliens. It was like something straight out of Sumo Slammer's Cosmic Clash. Except it was real. And terrifying. I can improve our defenses, Tetra offered. This vehicle has potential for significant upgrades. Do it, Max agreed. Ben, Gwen, try to get some sleep. We'll move again before dawn. Sleep? How could anyone sleep at a time like this? But Ben found his eyes growing heavy despite the adrenaline. The events of the day caught up with him all at once, the last day of school, the start of their trip, the meteor shower, the alien crash landing, the chase. He must have dozed off, because the next thing he knew, Grandpa Max was shaking him awake. Time to go, Ben. Quietly now. The sky outside had lightened to a pre-dawn gray. Ben rubbed his eyes and saw that the rust bucket's interior had changed dramatically overnight. Wires and circuits now lined the walls, and the dashboard was covered with new displays and controls that definitely hadn't come from an RV factory. What happened to the rust bucket? He asked groggily. Upgrades, Tetra answered from the passenger seat. The alien had reconfigured itself to fit more comfortably, telescoping its limbs to a more human proportion. Basic shields, scanner jamming capabilities, and modest weapons systems. Weapons? Ben perked up. Nothing major, Max clarified, starting the engine with a much quieter hum than before. Just enough to discourage pursuit. They rolled slowly out of their hiding place. The forest was quiet, with no sign of the hunter ships. Did they leave? Gwen asked hopefully. Tetra's head rotated 180 degrees to face her. Unlikely. More probable that they have expanded their search perimeter and will return. Great, she muttered. Max guided the RV back to the main road, which was mercifully empty at this early hour. We need to reach Highway 90 and head east. It's our fastest route to Mount Rushmore. They drove in tense silence for almost an hour, jumping at every sound. Ben kept expecting hunter ships to appear on the horizon, but the sky remained clear. Maybe they gave up. He suggested. Max shook his head. Vilgax doesn't give up. He's hunting another lead or regrouping. Who exactly is this Vilgax? Gwen asked. Max and Tetra exchanged glances. A warlord, Max finally said. One of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. He conquers worlds and steals their technology, adding it to his arsenal. 20 years ago, he tried to invade Earth. The plumbers stopped him, but barely. I was part of the team that drove him off. You fought this guy? Ben's respect for his grandfather shot up even further. And nearly didn't survive, Max admitted. He's ruthless, powerful, and obsessed with collecting powerful weapons. The Omnitrix would be his ultimate prize. With it, he could transform into the most dangerous species in the galaxy and become virtually unstoppable. The gravity of the situation hit Ben like a bucket of cold water. This wasn't a game or a comic book. This was an actual threat to the entire planet. We must reach your communication device, Tetra said. Galvan forces could assist in repelling Vilgax, but they must be alerted. They stopped briefly at a gas station to refuel and grab supplies. Max warned them to act normal and not attract attention. Ben found it nearly impossible to pretend everything was fine when he kept scanning the skies for alien ships, but somehow they managed to get back on the road without incident. Around noon, they were crossing a long bridge over a river when Tetra's makeshift sensors began beeping rapidly. Incoming. Multiple craft approaching from the northeast. Max floored the accelerator. Everyone hold on. The rust bucket shot forward as 5 hunter ships appeared over the horizon, closing fast. Energy blasts began raining down, striking the bridge around them. The shields Tetra had installed flickered blue with each near miss. Can this thing go any faster? Ben shouted as a blast hit uncomfortably close to his window. Working on it. Max swerved to avoid another shot, causing them all to lurch sideways. Tetra, we could use those weapons now. Activating defense systems, Tetra announced, 4 hands dancing over a jury-rigged control panel. Panels opened on the rust bucket's roof, and something that looked suspiciously like satellite dishes emerged. They swiveled toward the pursuing ships and fired pulses of blue energy. One of the hunter ships took a direct hit, spiraling away trailing smoke. The others broke formation, making themselves harder to target. The bridge ends in approximately 300 meters, Tetra warned. Forest cover ahead may provide tactical advantage. Max nodded grimly. As soon as we reach the trees, everyone be ready to bail out. They're tracking the RV. We're abandoning the rust bucket? Gwen asked incredulously. Just temporarily, Max assured her. We need to split up to confuse them. They reached the end of the bridge and plunged into dense forest. Max swerved off the road onto a dirt track, the RV bouncing violently as it navigated the rough terrain. Tetra, set the defense systems to automatic, Max ordered. Program the RV to continue down this path for another mile, then execute evasive maneuvers. Understood. Tetra's fingers flew over the controls. Max slammed on the brakes. Everyone out. Grab only what you can carry. Ben snatched his backpack, stuffing his handheld game console and a water bottle inside. Gwen was more practical, grabbing first aid supplies and a map. Max retrieved his plumber weapon and what looked like a high-tech toolkit. They bailed out of the RV and immediately sprinted into the undergrowth. Behind them, the rust bucket's engine revved, and it continued down the path without them. This way, Max whispered, leading them deeper into the forest. The sounds of energy blasts and explosions echoed from where the rust bucket had gone. Stay low and quiet. They crept through the trees for what felt like hours, though Ben's watch showed only 20 minutes had passed. Eventually, they reached a small clearing with a fallen log. Max signaled for them to rest. Did we lose them? Ben panted, his legs aching from the run. For now, Max said. But they'll figure out the RV was a decoy eventually. We need to keep moving. Tetra's mechanical eyes scanned the forest constantly. I am calculating our optimal route to your Mount Rushmore facility. Without vehicular transport, the journey will take approximately 18 days on foot. 18 days? Gwen exclaimed. We can't walk for 18 days. We won't have to, Max assured her. There's a plumber emergency cache about 5 miles from here. It should have transportation and supplies. Ben slumped against the log. The initial excitement of alien encounters had worn off, replaced by a bone-deep fatigue and gnawing fear. This was supposed to be a fun summer vacation, not a desperate flight from alien hunters. I wish I had powers, he muttered. Like in the comics. Then I could help fight these guys. Max put a hand on his shoulder. Ben, having powers doesn't make someone a hero. It's about using whatever abilities you have to do the right thing, even when it's hard or scary. But what abilities do I have? I'm just a kid. You're resourceful, brave, and quick-thinking, Max said firmly. Don't sell yourself short. Ben wasn't convinced, but he appreciated his grandfather's attempt to cheer him up. They rested for another few minutes before continuing their trek through the forest. The emergency cache turned out to be a small, underground bunker concealed beneath a fake boulder. Max pressed his hand to an indentation in the rock, and it slid aside to reveal a staircase. Whoa, Ben breathed as they descended into a small but well-equipped room. Weapons lined one wall, while another held medical supplies, food, and water. In the center sat a vehicle that looked like a cross between a dune buggy and a tank. Plumber Emergency Response Vehicle, Max explained, running his hand over its sleek hull. Hasn't been serviced in a while, but it should get us where we need to go. Tetra immediately began examining the vehicle. Primitive but functional. I can interface with the control systems to optimize performance. While Tetra worked, Max distributed supplies. He handed Ben what looked like a high-tech wristwatch. This is a plumber's badge, he explained. It's a communicator, scanner, and identification all in one. If we get separated, you can use it to contact me or track our position. Ben strapped it to his wrist, feeling a little thrilled despite the circumstances. A real alien tech gadget. He pressed a button, and a holographic display sprang to life, showing a topographical map of their surroundings. Cool. Gwen received one as well, along with a small device that Max called a neural taser, for emergencies only, he emphasized. They stocked up on food and water, and Max selected a few choice weapons from the wall. Vehicle modifications complete, Tetra announced. Stealth systems engaged. We should be able to travel undetected for approximately 47 minutes before the power cells require recharging. That'll get us far enough from here, Max said, climbing into the driver's seat. Everyone in. The response vehicle moved swiftly and silently through the forest, its suspension handling the rough terrain with ease. Ben watched through the window as trees blurred past. According to the onboard navigation system, they were heading northeast, staying off main roads. So what's the plan once we reach Mount Rushmore? Ben asked. Call in the alien cavalry and kick Vilgax off our planet? Something like that, Max nodded. The plumbers have protocols for this kind of situation. The galactic enforcers can be dispatched to apprehend Vilgax if we provide evidence of his activities on Earth. The challenge, Tetra interjected, will be surviving until assistance arrives. Vilgax has limited patience and unlimited ruthlessness. If he cannot locate the Omnitrix, he may resort to more destructive methods. Like what? Gwen asked nervously. Planetary bombardment. Hostage-taking. Biological warfare. Tetra's mechanical voice was disturbingly matter-of-fact. His previous conquests follow a pattern of escalating violence when faced with resistance. Ben swallowed hard. The weight of responsibility felt crushing. An entire planet at risk because aliens thought some superweapon was hidden here. Can't we just tell him the Omnitrix isn't on Earth, he suggested. He would not believe us without proof, Tetra said. And the only proof would be thorough planetary scanning, which would disrupt all Earth technology and likely cause widespread panic. Great. No easy solutions. They drove in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Ben kept checking his new plumber's badge, fascinated by the alien technology now strapped to his wrist. If only it could do more than communicate and scan. If only it could transform him into a hero who could actually fight back against Vilgax. The thought stuck in his mind. Transform. Like the Omnitrix was supposed to do. Tetra, he said suddenly, how does the Omnitrix work? You said it rewrites DNA? Correct. It contains the genetic code of over 1 million sentient species. When activated, it temporarily overwrites the user's DNA with the selected alien code, transforming them physically while maintaining their consciousness. And this Azimuth guy built it? Why? Tetra's head swiveled toward him. Azimuth's intentions were benevolent. He designed it as a tool for understanding, to help beings experience life as other species, promoting empathy and peace. But he realized too late its potential as a weapon. So it's like, the ultimate alien virtual reality? Gwen suggested. An imprecise but not inaccurate analogy, Tetra conceded. The experience is not virtual, however. The transformation is complete and real, granting all the abilities and limitations of the selected species. Ben's mind raced with the possibilities. Super strength, flight, laser vision, underwater breathing, the powers would depend on the alien form. It sounded like the coolest thing ever invented. And Vilgax wants it to become every dangerous alien there is, he mused aloud. Precisely. With the Omnitrix, he could transform into a Tetraman for strength, a Pyronite for destructive capability, a Galvan for intelligence, adapting to any situation with the ideal form. But it doesn't exist on Earth, Max reminded them. So our job is just to convince Vilgax of that fact without letting him tear the planet apart looking for it. Easier said than done. As evening approached, they reached the outskirts of a small town. The stealth systems had held, but the power cells were nearly depleted. "We'll need to stop and recharge," Max said, guiding the vehicle into a secluded wooded area. "And we should get some proper food and rest." "Is it safe to stop?" Gwen asked, eyeing the town lights nervously. "We're off their radar for now," Max assured her. "And we all need to regroup. There's a motel up ahead that accepts cash, no ID required. We can lay low there for the night." The motel was exactly the kind of rundown establishment that wouldn't ask questions about an old man traveling with 2 kids and whatever Tetra appeared to be. Max solved that problem by giving the alien a large hooded sweatshirt and sunglasses, which did a surprisingly effective job of hiding its non-human features in the dim evening light. They checked into a room at the far end of the building, away from other guests. Once inside, Tetra immediately began working on a more sustainable energy solution for their vehicle using parts from the motel room's ancient television and microwave. Max left briefly to get food, real, normal, non-alien food this time, much to Ben and Gwen's relief. When he returned with burgers and fries, they ate like they hadn't seen food in days. "So what's the plan for tomorrow?" Ben asked through a mouthful of burger. "We keep heading northeast," Max said. "If we maintain our current pace and avoid detection, we should reach Mount Rushmore in 3 days. 3 days of running and hiding," Gwen sighed. "This is not how I imagined summer vacation." "Tell me about it," Ben agreed. For once, they were united in their misery. After dinner, they took turns showering, even Tetra, who apparently needed to flush exterior cooling ducts occasionally. Ben found himself struggling to keep his eyes open, the day's events finally catching up to him. He was just drifting off to sleep when a massive explosion rocked the building. Ben bolted upright to see the motel room door blown inward, smoke filling the air. Through the haze stepped 2 drone soldiers, their weapons aimed directly at them. "Targets located," one announced in a mechanical voice. "Securing prisoners for transport to Lord Vilgax." Max was already moving, his plumber weapon firing bolts of energy that caught one drone square in the chest, sending it flying backward. The second fired back, forcing Max to dive behind the bed for cover. Ben scrambled off his mattress, heart pounding. What could he do? He had no powers, no weapons, nothing. Gwen had already grabbed her neural taser and was trying to get a clear shot. Tetra had flattened itself against the ceiling somehow, for arms working frantically to detach something from the light fixture. More drones appeared at the doorway. They were trapped. "Ben, Gwen, the bathroom window!" Max shouted, laying down covering fire. "Go now!" Ben grabbed Gwen's arm and pulled her toward the bathroom. They squeezed through the small window, tumbling onto the grass outside. Tetra somehow compressed its body to follow them through. "What about Grandpa?" Gwen cried. "I will retrieve him," Tetra said, extending its limbs to their full length. "Proceed to the vehicle and initiate startup sequence." The alien stretched impossibly back through the window. Seconds later, it emerged carrying Max, who was clutching his side where a blast had grazed him. "I'm fine," he grunted, though his face was pale with pain. "Let's move." They sprinted toward the woods where they'd hidden the plumber vehicle. Behind them, more explosions lit up the night as the hunter ships descended on the motel. "They found us," Ben panted as they reached the vehicle. "How?" "The plumber badges," Max realized with a grimace. "They must be tracking the alien tech signature. Everyone, badges off. Throw them as far as you can in different directions." Ben hesitated, reluctant to part with the cool gadget, but did as he was told. They all hurled their badges in different directions before piling into the vehicle. "The badges will emit signals for approximately 12 hours before power depletion," Tetra explained, taking the driver's seat since Max was injured. "This should provide adequate distraction." The vehicle's engine hummed to life, and they shot forward into the darkness. Through the rear window, Ben could see hunter ships hovering over the motel, searchlights sweeping the area. "Great," he muttered. "Now we don't even have cool alien tech to help us." "We have something better," Max said, wincing as he applied a first aid patch to his side. "We have our wits. And sometimes that's the best weapon of all." Ben wasn't convinced. Right now, he'd trade all his wits for the power to transform into something that could actually fight back against these drones. They drove through the night, sticking to forest trails and back roads. By dawn, they were hundreds of miles from the motel, but Max's injury was getting worse. The energy blast had done more damage than he'd initially let on. "We need to find somewhere safe where I can treat this properly," he admitted as they pulled into an abandoned barn to hide during daylight hours. Gwen looked at the wound with concern. "It's infected, isn't it?" "Not infected," Tetra corrected, examining it with glowing eyes. "Residual energy disrupting cellular cohesion. A common effect of Chimerian weaponry." "Can you help him?" Ben asked desperately. "I require specific compounds to neutralize the energy signature." Tetra's eyes dimmed slightly. "Most can be found in common Earth materials, but I need access to supplies." "There's a town about 5 miles from here," Gwen said, checking the vehicle's navigation system. "I saw a pharmacy when we passed through." "Too risky," Max shook his head. "They could be watching population centers." "But you need medicine," Ben insisted. "And we need supplies. We can't just hide in barns all the way to Mount Rushmore." Max tried to sit up straighter but grimaced in pain. "You're right. But we need a plan that doesn't expose all of us." After some discussion, they decided Ben and Gwen would go into town, disguised as normal kids on a summer outing. Tetra provided them with a list of needed items, most of which could be found in a pharmacy or hardware store. They would take backpacks and return on foot to avoid drawing attention to their vehicle. "Remember, act normal," Max instructed as they prepared to leave. "Don't rush, don't look nervous. Just 2 kids buying some odds and ends." "We got this, Grandpa," Ben assured him, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. "Just rest and save your strength." The walk into town was tense, both cousins constantly scanning the skies for any sign of hunter ships. But the morning was peaceful, with only the occasional car passing them on the rural road. The town was small, just a main street with a handful of shops, a diner, and the pharmacy they needed. They split up to gather the items on Tetra's list: hydrogen peroxide, aluminum foil, copper wire, baking soda, pain relievers, and a dozen other seemingly random items. Ben was examining batteries in the hardware store when he overheard 2 employees talking. "Did you see the news? That meteor shower last night turned into something else. They're saying a satellite crashed near Silver Creek. Government's all over it. My cousin's on the volunteer fire department there, says they've been ordered to stay away from the crash site. Military business, apparently." Ben pretended to be interested in flashlights while he listened. So the government was covering up the alien crash. Made sense, can't have people panicking about an invasion. He selected the batteries Tetra had requested and brought them to the counter. The clerk eyed him suspiciously. "School project?" the man asked, looking at Ben's odd assortment of purchases. Yeah. Summer science camp," Ben improvised. "We're building robots." "Huh. Well, good luck with that." The clerk seemed satisfied with the explanation and rang up the items. Ben met Gwen outside the pharmacy. She'd been equally successful, her backpack now bulging with supplies. "Did you get everything?" she whispered as they started walking back toward the edge of town. "Yeah. Did you hear people talking about the crash? The government's covering it up as a satellite." Gwen nodded. "I heard. There's something else too, people have been seeing weird lights in the sky all across the Midwest. It's all over the news." They passed a television in a shop window, showing aerial footage of circular burn patterns in cornfields. The caption read, "Crop circles or something more." Mysterious phenomena spreading across 5 states. They're looking for the Omnitrix, Ben realized. Scanning farmland because it's empty and easy to search. Which means they still don't know it's not actually on Earth, Gwen added. How are we going to convince them? It was a question Ben couldn't answer. They continued walking, lost in thought, when suddenly a familiar humming sound came from overhead. Hunter's ship. Ben hissed, pulling Gwen behind a parked truck just as a sleek craft passed low over the town's main street. It hovered briefly, scanning, then continued onward. That was close, Gwen breathed. They're even checking small towns now. They waited until they were absolutely certain the ship was gone before continuing, this time sticking to alleys and side streets until they reached the edge of town. The walk back to the barn seemed to take forever, both of them jumping at every sound and constantly checking the sky. When they finally reached the barn, they found Tetra hunched over a makeshift workbench constructed from hay bales and old planks. The alien looked up as they entered. You have acquired the necessary components. Excellent. How's Grandpa? Ben asked, noticing Max was asleep on a pile of blankets in the corner. Stable, but the energy disruption continues to spread. I must work quickly. They unpacked their supplies, and Tetra immediately began combining them in ways that made no scientific sense to Ben. Copper wire was wound around batteries, then dipped in a solution of hydrogen peroxide and baking soda. Aluminum foil was shaped into intricate patterns and connected to a circuit board that the alien had apparently constructed from parts of the vehicle. Is that going to help Grandpa? Gwen asked doubtfully. This is a multi-phase process, Tetra explained without looking up. I am constructing both a treatment device for Max Tennyson and a communication array to contact Galvan forces. You can call your people with baking soda and aluminum foil. Ben couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. Your primitive materials are merely the building blocks. The application of Galvan science allows for significant upconversion of functionality. Over the next few hours, they watched in amazement as Tetra's 4 hands worked in perfect coordination, creating something that looked increasingly like advanced technology from household items. By late afternoon, the alien had produced 2 devices, one a small, glowing pad that it applied to Max's wound, and the other a spindly antenna-like structure that it attached to the roof of the barn. The neutralizer will cleanse the energy disruption within 6 hours, Tetra announced. The communication array requires alignment with Galvan Prime, which will be within range at 22:17 local time. So we just wait? Ben asked, frustrated at their inaction while Vilgax's forces continued searching. Correct. Movement would compromise both the treatment and the communication attempt. Ben paced the barn restlessly while Gwen tended to their grandfather. The waiting was unbearable. He felt useless, just a kid hiding in a barn while aliens hunted them. If only he had powers. If only he had the Omnitrix. Then he could transform into something powerful enough to fight back, to protect his family. But wishful thinking wouldn't help them now. They needed a plan for what to do after Max recovered. Even if Tetra contacted the Galvans, help would take time to arrive. They still needed to reach Mount Rushmore to alert the plumbers. As evening approached, Max finally woke up. He looked better already, some color returning to his face. The treatment is working, he said, examining the glowing pad on his side. Good work, all of you. It was mostly Tetra, Gwen admitted. We just shopped. Speaking of Tetra, Max looked around. Where is our alien friend? Ben pointed to the roof. Setting up some kind of communication device to call home. Says it'll work tonight. Max nodded thoughtfully. That's good. The more help we can get, the better. But we should still plan to reach Mount Rushmore as soon as possible. They gathered around the vehicle's navigation system, plotting the most direct route that avoided major population centers. According to the map, they were still at least 2 days away, assuming no further delays. We'll leave at first light tomorrow, Max decided. I should be well enough to travel by then. As night fell, Tetra returned from the roof, all four arms making minute adjustments to a device that resembled a satellite dish made of kitchen scraps. Galactic alignment in 27 minutes, the alien announced. Communication window will be brief, approximately 140 seconds. They waited in tense silence as Tetra made final preparations. Ben found himself holding his breath as the alien activated the device. It hummed softly, emitting a blue glow that illuminated the barn's interior. Transmission commencing, Tetra said. Encoding secure channel to Galvan Prime emergency frequency. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a holographic image flickered to life above the device, a small, frog-like alien with large eyes and a stern expression. Emergency channel accessed. Identify yourself. The alien's voice was high-pitched but authoritative. Technical Engineer Tetra, registration GTA 5729, requesting emergency assistance. Chimerian hammer detected in Sol system, planet Earth. Vilgax pursues Omnitrix signature. The Galvan's eyes widened. Vilgax. On Earth? This is most disturbing. Is the device secure? Negative, Tetra replied. The Omnitrix is not present on Earth. Vilgax operates under false intelligence. I see. The Galvan seemed to consider this information. And you are certain of this? Affirmative. I have scanned the planet's surface within range of my instruments. No Omnitrix energy signature detected. The hologram flickered, the connection clearly unstable. We will dispatch, static interrupted. Arrive within, more static. Maintain position, the transmission cut out completely. Tetra's four arms worked frantically to restore it, but the device sparked and went dark. Connection lost, the alien announced. Galactic alignment window closed. Next opportunity in 47 Earth hours. Did they understand? Max asked. Are they sending help? Message received, but confirmation incomplete. Standard protocol would indicate dispatch of investigative team, arrival time between 72 and 96 hours. So we might have help in 3 or 4 days, Gwen summarized. If they understood the message. And if they believed it, Ben added. That guy didn't seem totally convinced the Omnitrix wasn't here. Max sighed. We stick to the original plan. Reach Mount Rushmore, contact Plumber Command, deal with Vilgax using all available resources. They settled in for the night, taking turns keeping watch. Ben volunteered for the first shift, sitting by the barn door with a makeshift alarm system Tetra had constructed from their remaining supplies. The night was quiet except for the occasional distant rumble, thunder, or possibly hunter ships. It was impossible to tell. Ben's mind kept returning to the Omnitrix. A device that could transform its user into any alien in the galaxy. The ultimate power, the ultimate responsibility. Part of him was relieved it wasn't real, or at least, not on Earth, because the temptation to use it would be overwhelming. Another part wished desperately that he had it now, to protect his family and his planet. His watch showed nearly midnight when he heard it, a low, pulsing hum that grew steadily louder. Not thunder. Spacecraft. Everyone up, he hissed, rushing to wake the others. They're coming. They scrambled to gather their belongings as the sound grew louder. Through cracks in the barn's wooden walls, they could see searchlights sweeping the surrounding fields. How did they find us? Gwen whispered frantically. The transmission, Tetra realized. Despite encryption, they may have detected the signal. Max, moving much more easily now that the treatment had taken effect, hurried to the vehicle. No time to worry about that now. We need to move before they zero in on our location. They piled in, and Max started the engine. Tetra, can you give us any stealth capabilities? Minimal. Power reserves at 42%. Full stealth would deplete them entirely in 7.3 minutes. Then we'll have to run for it. Hold on, everyone. Max crashed the vehicle through the barn doors, sending splintered wood flying in all directions. The sudden movement caught the hunter ships by surprise, giving them a precious few seconds head start. They tore across the field, heading for the tree line where they might find cover. Behind them, alarms blared, and searchlights swung to fix on their position. Incoming! Tetra warned as energy blasts began peppering the ground around them. Max swerved erratically, making them harder to hit. They'd almost reached the trees when a blast struck the ground directly in front of them, sending the vehicle airborne. For a sickening moment, they were weightless. Then they crashed back to Earth, the impact jolting them violently. "Is everyone okay?" Max called out, fighting to regain control. Before anyone could answer, a blinding light enveloped them from above. Looking up, Ben saw not a hunter ship, but something much larger, a massive craft hovering directly overhead. The Chimerian hammer itself. A deep, booming voice emanated from the ship, so powerful it seemed to vibrate the air itself. "I am Vilgax, conqueror of worlds. You possess that which is rightfully mine. Surrender the Omnitrix, or witness the destruction of your primitive planet." Ben felt a chill run down his spine. The voice radiated malevolence and power. This was the being his grandfather had fought, and barely survived, years ago. "What do we do?" he whispered. Max's expression was grim. "We can't outrun him now. Not with the Chimerian hammer itself in play." He turned to Tetra. "Can you communicate with him? Tell him the truth, that the Omnitrix isn't here." "I can attempt to establish communication," Tetra said, "but Vilgax is unlikely to believe without proof. And the proof he would demand would be full planetary scanning, which would disrupt Earth's technology and cause panic," Gwen finished. "But what choice do we have?" A mechanical whirring sound cut off further discussion as a beam of light shot down from the Chimerian hammer. Within the beam, a figure began to materialize, humanoid, but massive, at least 9 feet tall, with tentacle-like appendages on its face and bulging muscles covered in armor. "Vilgax," Max breathed, his face pale. "He's coming himself." The beam dissipated, leaving the imposing figure standing just 50 yards away. Even at a distance, Ben could make out glowing red eyes and a face that seemed more machine than flesh. "Max Tennyson," Vilgax's voice boomed across the field. "We meet again. Age has not been kind to you, plumber." Max stepped out of the vehicle, moving protectively in front of the others. "And you've gotten uglier, if that was possible." Vilgax laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Your defiance is as pointless now as it was 20 years ago. Hand over the Omnitrix, and I may spare your insignificant planet." "The Omnitrix isn't here, Vilgax," Max called back. "You're chasing a ghost." "Lies!" Vilgax roared. "My sensors detected the energy signature. The Galvan engineer transmitted to their homeworld. Do not insult my intelligence, Tennyson." Ben glanced at Tetra, who had shrunken back inside the vehicle. The alien looked genuinely afraid. "We're telling the truth," Max insisted. "There is no Omnitrix on Earth. Never was. Your intelligence is flawed." Vilgax raised a massive arm, and a weapon unfolded from his armor. "Then you are of no use to me." Everything happened in a blur. The weapon discharged, sending a blast of energy directly at Max. Ben, acting on pure instinct, tackled his grandfather aside, the energy blast missing them by inches. "Grandpa, run!" Ben shouted, pulling Max to his feet. They sprinted back toward the vehicle as more blasts tore up the ground around them. "Impressive reflexes, child," Vilgax called, his tone almost amused. "But futile." He fired again, this time hitting the vehicle directly. It exploded in a fireball, sending Ben, Max, Gwen, and Tetra flying in different directions. Ben landed hard, the breath knocked from his lungs. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard Gwen crying out in pain and Max shouting. He struggled to his feet, disoriented, to see Vilgax striding through the flames toward Tetra, who lay injured and exposed. The engineer, Vilgax growled. You will tell me where Azimuth has hidden the Omnitrix, or your suffering will be legendary. Something snapped inside Ben. He'd been running, hiding, feeling helpless since this whole nightmare began. But seeing Vilgax threatening Tetra, who had helped them, who had saved Grandpa Max's life, he couldn't stand by anymore. Without a weapon, without powers, without even a plan, Ben charged straight at Vilgax. Leave them alone, he screamed, picking up a piece of wreckage and hurling it at the alien warlord. Vilgax turned, almost casually knocking the projectile aside. Foolish child. Your bravery will not save you. But Ben didn't stop. He dodged the first energy blast, rolled under the second, and somehow, impossibly, found himself within striking distance of Vilgax. He kicked, punched, anything to distract the warlord from his injured friends. Vilgax backhanded him, sending him flying. The impact when he hit the ground knocked all the air from his lungs. Every part of him hurt. But when he looked up, he saw he'd achieved his goal. Vilgax had moved away from Tetra, giving Gwen time to pull the injured alien to safety. Impressive, Vilgax rumbled, looming over Ben. Few beings have the courage to attack me directly. Your DNA would make an interesting addition to my collection. Ben tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. He'd never felt so small, so powerless. If only he had the Omnitrix. If only he could transform into something strong enough to fight back. I don't have your stupid watch, Ben spat defiantly, tasting blood in his mouth. None of us do. Then you will watch as I tear this planet apart to find it. Vilgax raised his weapon again, aiming directly at Ben's head. Starting with you. A flash of blue light struck Vilgax from behind, causing him to stagger. Max stood 20 yards away, holding what looked like part of their destroyed vehicle, modified into a makeshift weapon. Get away from my grandson, Max growled, firing again. Vilgax roared in anger, turning to face this new threat. Ben used the distraction to crawl away, every movement sending spikes of pain through his body. The battle that followed was like nothing Ben had ever witnessed. Max, despite his age and recent injury, moved with the skill of a trained warrior, using the environment and his makeshift weapon to keep Vilgax at bay. But it was a losing battle. Vilgax was simply too powerful, too well-armed, too indestructible. Ben reached Gwen and Tetra, who had taken cover behind a fallen tree. We have to help Grandpa, he panted, clutching his ribs. How? Gwen demanded, her face streaked with tears and soot. We don't have weapons, powers, anything. Tetra, damaged but functional, extended one arm toward the wreckage of their vehicle. Perhaps, a solution exists. The alien's body stretched impossibly, reaching into the burning remains to retrieve something, a small, pulsing device that Ben recognized as part of their communication array. This contains residual transmission energy, Tetra explained, voice faltering as its system struggled. If reconfigured, could simulate Omnitrix signature, elsewhere. A decoy? Ben realized. Make Vilgax think the Omnitrix is somewhere else? Affirmative. Temporary, but effective. Do it, Ben decided. How can we help? Need, power source. And delivery mechanism. Gwen looked around frantically, then pointed to a small drone that had crashed nearby, one of Vilgax's scouts, still sparking with energy. Will that work? Perfect. Tetra began working immediately, four hands moving with desperate speed despite its injuries. Meanwhile, Max was losing ground. A powerful blast from Vilgax sent him flying backward, landing hard near their position. Grandpa! Ben and Gwen cried in unison, rushing to his side. Max struggled to sit up. Kids, run, get to the woods. We're not leaving you, Ben said firmly. Tetra has a plan. Max looked past them to where Vilgax approached, his massive form silhouetted against the burning wreckage. Whatever it is, do it fast. Tetra crawled over, holding what looked like a cobbled-together mess of wires, circuit boards, and the drone's power cell. Device, complete. Will broadcast false Omnitrix signature, powerful enough to override any local readings. The alien's voice was weaker now, systems failing. But must be delivered, to upper atmosphere, for maximum effect. How do we do that? Gwen asked desperately. Tetra's blue eyes flickered. Drone's propulsion system, still functional. But requires, guidance. Understanding dawned on Max's face. You're saying one of us needs to pilot it? Correct. Manual operation, to avoid Vilgax's countermeasures. Ben looked from the device to Vilgax, now only yards away. I'll do it. No. Max and Gwen protested simultaneously. It has to be me, Ben insisted. I'm the smallest, the lightest. The drone can carry me highest. It's too dangerous, Max grabbed his arm. I can't let you, there's no time to argue, Ben cut him off. This is our only chance. He turned to Tetra. How do I control it? The alien quickly explained the improvised control system, essentially two joysticks that would direct the drone's flight. The plan was for Ben to guide it high enough to broadcast the false signature, making it appear the Omnitrix was leaving Earth's atmosphere. Vilgax would have no choice but to pursue. Once at optimal altitude. Press this to activate transmission, Tetra instructed, indicating a red button. Then, jump. Jump? From the upper atmosphere? Gwen looked horrified. Drone contains, emergency descent module. Will deploy automatically. In other words, a parachute. Maybe. Ben swallowed hard but nodded. Ready when you are. Benjamin Kirby Tennyson, I forbid this, Max said, but his voice lacked conviction. They all knew there were no better options. Sorry, Grandpa, Ben said, hugging him quickly. Someone has to be the hero today. He turned to Gwen. Try not to miss me too much, dweeb. Before anyone could stop him, Ben grabbed the device and scrambled onto the damaged drone. It was barely large enough to support him, its surface hot against his legs. He gripped the makeshift controls Tetra had installed. How do I start it? He called. Tetra pressed a sequence on the drone's surface. Activated. Good luck, Ben Tennyson. The drone shuddered beneath him, then lifted off the ground with surprising speed. Ben fought to maintain control as they shot upward, passing directly over Vilgax's head. What is this? The warlord roared, firing at the ascending drone. His shots went wide as Ben swerved erratically. The ground fell away at a terrifying rate. Ben could see the entire countryside spread out below, fields, forests, distant town lights. The air grew colder, thinner. His ears popped painfully. Still higher they climbed. The drone was never designed for this, and Ben could feel it straining, vibrating violently beneath him. His fingers, numb with cold, clutched the controls desperately. The stars above seemed impossibly bright now, the air so thin he struggled to breathe. This had to be high enough. He reached for the red button, ready to activate the transmission. A sudden blast rocked the drone, sending it spinning. Somehow Vilgax had managed to hit them. Alarms blared from the device as they began to fall. No! Ben shouted, fighting to regain control. They'd come too far to fail now. With frozen fingers, he pressed the red button, praying it would work despite the damage. The device flared to life, emitting a pulsing energy that lit up the night sky. Even through his oxygen-deprived haze, Ben could see it was working, a beacon of energy shooting upward into space, a false trail for Vilgax to follow. The drone was falling faster now, systems failing. Ben could make out the Chimerian hammer below, its engines glowing as it prepared to pursue the signal into space. It was time to jump. Ben released the controls and pushed away from the dying drone. For a moment, he was free-falling, the wind screaming past his ears. Then something deployed from the device still clutched in his hands, not exactly a parachute, but some sort of energy field that slowed his descent. As he floated downward, Ben watched the Chimerian hammer and its fleet of hunter ships accelerate upward, following the false Omnitrix signal into the stars. Their plan had worked. Earth was safe, at least for now. His landing was less than graceful, a tumbling impact that left him bruised but alive. He lay on his back, staring up at the night sky where the last of Vilgax's ships were vanishing from view. Footsteps approached rapidly. Ben. Gwen's voice, thick with relief. You crazy, stupid, brave idiot. She helped him sit up as Max and Tetra joined them. His grandfather looked equal parts furious and proud. That was the most reckless thing I've ever seen, Max said, pulling Ben into a fierce hug. Don't you ever do anything like that again. Did it work? Ben asked, his voice hoarse. Tetra nodded, mechanical eyes glowing softly in the darkness. The transmission was successful. Vilgax has pursued the signal beyond Earth's orbit. The deception will not last forever, but it provides time. Time for what? Gwen asked. Time to reach Mount Rushmore, Max said firmly. Time to contact the plumbers and prepare Earth's defenses. Because Vilgax will be back, and next time, he'll be even angrier. Ben struggled to his feet, every muscle protesting. He had no powers, no Omnitrix, nothing but his own courage and quick thinking. Yet somehow, he'd managed to drive off one of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Maybe Grandpa was right. Maybe being a hero wasn't about having powers. Maybe it was about doing the right thing, even when it seemed impossible. As they limped away from the battlefield, supporting each other, Ben knew one thing for certain: this summer vacation was just beginning, and it was going to be the adventure of a lifetime. Chapter 2, Building Your Own Power. Dawn broke over the smoldering remains of the battlefield. Ben, Gwen, Max, and Tetra had taken shelter in a cave several miles from where they'd faced Vilgax. Everyone was exhausted, injured, and completely out of options for transportation. The plumber vehicle was destroyed, they had no communication devices, and Vilgax would eventually realize he'd been tricked. Ben winced as Gwen applied antiseptic to a nasty cut on his forehead. Ow. Take it easy. Hold still, doofus. You want it to get infected? She dabbed more carefully. You're lucky this is all you got after that stunt with the drone. That stunt saved our lives, Ben reminded her, but without his usual smugness. The reality of what he'd done, facing Vilgax, flying into the upper atmosphere, nearly dying, was still sinking in. Across the cave, Max was helping Tetra repair its damaged systems using salvaged parts from the drone Ben had ridden. The alien's metallic body had taken significant damage during the battle, with one arm barely functional and its normally smooth surface dented and scorched. How much farther to Mount Rushmore? Ben asked. About 400 miles, Max replied, not looking up from his work. Normally a day's drive, but on foot. 7 to 10 days, accounting for terrain and required rest periods, Tetra calculated. However, Vilgax will likely return in less than 5 once he discovers the deception. Great. They were basically stranded in the middle of nowhere with an alien warlord due back any day now. So we're toast, Ben concluded. Not yet, Max said firmly. He finished attaching something to Tetra's damaged arm, causing the alien's blue eyes to brighten. We've still got options. There's a small plumber outpost about 30 miles from here. If we can reach it, we might find transportation and communication equipment. 30 miles. Gwen groaned. That's like a whole day of walking. Then we better get started. Max stood up, wincing slightly from his own injuries. We've got water, some food, and a general direction. That's more than I had on some of my old plumber missions. Ben couldn't help but feel a surge of admiration for his grandfather. The man had literally been thrown into an exploding vehicle yesterday, and here he was, ready to march 30 miles without complaint. They gathered what little supplies they had, water bottles, energy bars salvaged from their packs, and the makeshift tools Max had put together from wreckage. As they prepared to leave, Tetra approached Ben. "Your actions were unexpected," the alien said, mechanical voice somehow conveying respect. "Few beings would risk themselves as you did." Ben shrugged, suddenly embarrassed. "I just did what anyone would do." "Incorrect. Most would flee or surrender. Your species is physically unimpressive, yet you challenged Vilgax directly." "Fascinating. Thanks. I think. I have been reassessing my evaluation of humans since crash landing here," Tetra continued. "Perhaps Azimuth was correct about your species' potential." Before Ben could ask what that meant, Max called them to move out. They left the cave and headed northeast, following the rising sun. The landscape was mostly farmland, with occasional patches of forest providing brief shelter from the summer heat. After about 2 hours of walking, Ben's initial energy had faded into a steady ache in his legs and back. "Are we there yet?" he whined, knowing it was childish but unable to help himself. "We've covered approximately 7.2 miles, Tetra informed him. "Less than 25% of our journey to the outpost." "Thanks for the math lesson," Ben muttered. "Pace yourself," Max advised. "We'll take regular breaks, but we need to keep moving." They fell into a rhythm, walking for an hour, resting for 10 minutes, then walking again. Tetra kept watch for any signs of pursuit, its telescoping eyes able to scan much farther than human vision. So far, the skies remained clear, no hunter ships, no Chimerian hammer. It seemed their decoy had worked, at least temporarily. During one of their breaks, sheltering under a large oak tree, Max pulled something from his pocket, a small, octagonal device with a glowing blue center. "What's that?" Ben asked, leaning forward curiously. "Something I salvaged from our vehicle before Vilgax blasted it," Max explained. "A plumber training module. Not much use for communication, but it contains basic protocols and training programs." "So, like an alien video game?" Max chuckled. "More like a simulator. If we're going to face Vilgax again, and we will, you kids need to know how to defend yourselves." Ben perked up. "You're going to train us to be plumbers?" "Just the basics," Max cautioned. "Enough to keep you alive?" "Heck yes." Ben punched the air excitedly. Finally, a chance to be a real hero, not just a lucky kid with good timing. Gwen seemed less enthusiastic. "Is that really necessary, Grandpa? Once we reach Mount Rushmore and contact the plumbers, even if everything goes perfectly," Max interrupted, "it'll take time for reinforcements to arrive. And things rarely go perfectly." He activated the device, which projected a small hologram of various alien species and weapons. Better to be prepared. Over the next few hours of walking, Max began their training, explaining the fundamentals of plumber protocols, alien identification, and basic combat techniques. Ben tried to absorb it all, but there was just so much information, hundreds of alien species, complex galactic politics, technologies he couldn't even begin to understand. The key to plumber operations, Max was saying, isn't superior firepower. It's intelligence and adaptability. Knowing your opponent's weaknesses and exploiting them. Like how you knew Vilgax's ships would follow that fake Omnitrix signal, Ben realized. Exactly. Vilgax's obsession with the Omnitrix is his weakness. We used that against him. By late afternoon, they'd covered about 15 miles, halfway to the outpost. They found a small stream where they could refill their water bottles and rest. "Let's practice what we've learned," Max suggested. He pointed to a series of rocks of various sizes. "Those are your targets. Pretend they're drone soldiers. Show me how you'd approach the situation." Ben immediately grabbed a fallen branch, wielding it like a sword. "I'd charge in and take them out." He ran toward the rocks, swinging wildly, making whoosh sounds with each strike. When he turned back, expecting praise, he found Max shaking his head. "What's wrong?" "I got all of them." "You also got yourself killed about 6 different ways," Max said. "You charged in with no cover, no assessment, and no backup plan. Against real drones, you wouldn't have made it 3 steps." Ben's excitement deflated. "Oh. Try again. But this time, think before you act." Ben looked at the rocks more carefully. They were arranged in a rough semicircle, with gaps between them. If they were actual enemies, "I'd use that fallen log for cover," he said slowly, pointing. "Then maybe throw some smaller rocks as a distraction before moving to those bushes for a better angle." Max nodded approvingly. "Better. Position and timing matter more than strength, especially when you're outgunned." Gwen took her turn next, demonstrating a more methodical approach that impressed even Ben, though he'd never admit it. As they practiced, Tetra observed with apparent fascination. "Your teaching methods are unorthodox," Max Tennyson, the alien commented. "Galvan training involves 2.7 years of theoretical study before practical applications are permitted." "Humans learn by doing," Max replied. "Especially these two." They continued their journey as evening approached, the training exercises helping to distract from the physical strain of the long trek. They'd reached more wooded terrain now, with rolling hills that made travel slower but provided better cover. As dusk fell, Max called a halt in a small clearing. "We'll camp here for the night. Too dangerous to keep moving in the dark, and we all need rest." They gathered firewood, and Max used a technique he'd learned from a pyronite, whatever that was, to start a fire without matches. The dancing flames cast long shadows as they ate the last of their energy bars and settled in for the night. "I'll take first watch," Max said. "Tetra, can your sensors function while your main systems recharge?" "Affirmative. Passive scanning will continue and alert if any anomalies are detected." Ben lay on his back, looking up at the stars through gaps in the trees. Somewhere up there, Vilgax was searching for a device that wasn't even on Earth. How long until he realized he'd been tricked? How long until he returned, angrier than ever? Despite his exhaustion, sleep didn't come easily. When it did, his dreams were filled with aliens, spaceships, and a strange watch-like device that kept slipping out of his reach every time he tried to grab it. He woke to Gwen shaking his shoulder. "Ben, get up. Something's wrong." The sky was just beginning to lighten with pre-dawn gray. Ben sat up groggily to see Max and Tetra huddled together, examining something the alien was projecting from its eyes. "What's going on?" he asked, stumbling over. "Atmospheric disturbances consistent with orbital entry," Tetra explained. "Multiple objects descending, but not Chimerian Hammer class. Smaller ships," Max translated. "Probably bounty hunters or scout drones. Vilgax often employs them when he doesn't want to show himself." "How far away?" Gwen asked. "Impossible to determine precisely with damaged sensors. Within 100-mile radius. Approach vector suggests systematic search pattern." Ben's heart sank. "They're looking for us. Or the Omnitrix," Max corrected. "Either way, we need to move. The outpost is only about 12 miles from here. If we push hard, we can reach it by midday." They quickly broke camp, making sure to erase all signs of their presence. The morning air was cool and damp as they set off, moving as quickly as they dared through the increasingly rugged terrain. Every few minutes, Tetra would scan the skies, its damaged sensors straining to pick up any sign of pursuit. By mid-morning, the aliens' warnings became more frequent. "Contact. 2 aerial vehicles, approximately 7.3 miles southwest, moving northeast." "Are they following us?" Ben asked anxiously. "Uncertain. Flight path is consistent with search grid pattern, not direct pursuit. They're sweeping the area systematically," Max explained in a hushed voice. "We need cover, now." They veered into a denser part of the forest, where the canopy would hide them from aerial observation. The ground was uneven here, with moss-covered rocks and fallen trees creating a natural obstacle course. Their pace slowed dramatically. How much further to the outpost? Gwen panted, climbing over a massive fallen trunk. About 8 miles, Max replied. But we need to be careful. If those ships are equipped with DNA scanners, they could pick up our human signatures. Can we mask them somehow? Ben asked. Like we did with Tetra's energy signal? Max thought for a moment. The outpost should have molecular scrambling tech. But until then. He looked at Tetra. Any ideas? The alien's eyes whirred as it considered the problem. Certain mineral compositions can interfere with standard DNA scanners. Manganese, lead, specific iron compounds. There's an old mining region not far from here, Max remembered. If we detour through it, the natural mineral deposits might mask our signatures. Detours extend journey time and exposure risk, Tetra pointed out. Better than being spotted, Max decided. Let's go. The detour took them through a series of steep hills dotted with abandoned mineshafts. The terrain was treacherous, loose rocks, unstable ground, rusty equipment left to rot decades ago. But Max seemed to know exactly where he was going, guiding them through the maze with confidence. How do you know this area so well, Grandpa? Ben asked, carefully navigating a narrow path along a ridge. Old plumber mission, Max replied. About 15 years ago. A crabdozer broke loose from a transport ship and hid in one of these mines. Took us 3 days to track it down. What now? Imagine a rhinoceros the size of a bus, with armor plating and a bad attitude. Max grinned at Ben's wide-eyed expression. Don't worry, they're not native to Earth. Probably. Not helping, Grandpa. They reached a plateau overlooking a valley. In the distance, perhaps 4 or 5 miles away, they could see what looked like a small ranger station nestled among the trees. The outpost, Max confirmed, following Ben's gaze. Disguised as a Forest Service building. We're almost there. A sudden roar overhead caused them all to duck instinctively. A sleek, black ship streaked across the sky, moving far too fast and silently to be human technology. Down! Max hissed, pulling them behind a large boulder. The ship circled back, slower now, scanning. From their hiding spot, they could make out its unusual design, angular, with what looked like oversized cannons mounted on each side. Soderagian hunter vessel, Tetra identified. Extremely dangerous. Soderagians are elite bounty hunters known for always completing their contracts. Great, Ben muttered. Space bounty hunters. What's next, alien cowboys? Actually, there is a species called rooters who, not now, Tetra, Max interrupted. He studied the ship's movement. It's definitely scanning the area. We're going to have to make a run for it once it moves off. And if it doesn't move off? Gwen asked nervously. Then we fight, Max said grimly. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. They waited, barely breathing, as the ship completed another sweep of the area. After what seemed like an eternity, it accelerated away toward the east. Now's our chance, Max whispered. Stay low, move fast, and don't stop for anything. They abandoned the cover of the boulder and raced down the hillside, sliding and stumbling on the loose rock. Ben's lungs burned and his legs ached, but fear kept him moving. They had almost reached the tree line when a flash of light erupted behind them. Teleport signature. Tetra warned. Soderagian deployed. Ben risked a glance over his shoulder and immediately wished he hadn't. Standing atop the ridge they just ascended was a figure straight out of a nightmare, 7 feet tall, covered in black armor with glowing red eyes and what looked like harpoon guns mounted on each forearm. Keep moving. Max shouted as the bounty hunter raised its weapons. Energy blasts impacted around them as they dove into the forest. The trees provided some cover, but Ben could hear the heavy footsteps of the hunter pursuing them, moving far faster than any human could. "We can't outrun it," Gwen gasped between breaths. "We don't have to," Max replied. "We just need to reach the outpost. Split up, it can't chase all of us." "Bad idea," Ben protested. "We should stick together." "No time to argue. Tetra, go with Ben. Gwen, with me. Meet at the outpost. Go." Before Ben could object further, Max and Gwen veered left while Tetra grabbed his arm and pulled him right. The alien's damaged body still moved with surprising speed, telescoping limbs allowing it to navigate the forest with ease. Behind them, Ben heard the hunter pause, apparently deciding which group to pursue. A moment later, energy blasts tore through the trees in their direction. "He's following us," Ben yelped. "Logical. Alien pursuing alien," Tetra replied, ducking under a low branch. "Likely believes I possess Omnitrix." They zigzagged through the trees, the bounty hunter closing the gap with each passing second. A blast struck a tree just inches from Ben's head, showering him with splinters. "We need a plan," Ben shouted. "We can't just keep running." Tetra's eyes scanned their surroundings, processing options. "Ravine ahead. Drop to lower elevation, use terrain for ambush." Before Ben could ask for clarification, they burst through the trees to find themselves on the edge of a steep ravine, perhaps 30 feet deep with a shallow stream at the bottom. "Jump!" Tetra ordered. "Are you crazy?" "Incorrect assessment. Jump." The bounty hunter crashed through the trees behind them, weapons raised. No time to argue. Ben jumped, Tetra right beside him. They hit the slope and rolled painfully downward, finally splashing into the cold stream below. Ben surfaced, spitting water. "Now what?" Tetra was already moving, forearms gathering rocks and branches. "Construct barricade. When hunter descends, spring trap." Ben caught on quickly. Together, they hastily piled debris to create a choke point in the narrow ravine. Tetra positioned itself behind a large boulder, stretching one arm across the stream to link with their makeshift barricade. "When hunter reaches position, I will trigger collapse," the alien explained. "You must then disable its targeting systems." "How am I supposed to do that?" "Target visual sensors, the red components of its helmet." "You want me to poke out its eyes?" "With what?" Tetra detached a small component from its arm, a sharp, metallic shard about 6 inches long. "This material can penetrate Sotaragian armor at close range." "Great. Hand-to-hand combat with a space bounty hunter." Just what Ben had planned for summer vacation. They didn't have to wait long. The hunter appeared at the ravine edge, scanning for signs of its prey. When it spotted them, it didn't hesitate, it simply leapt down, landing with a heavy splash in the stream. The trap worked better than expected. As the hunter advanced, Tetra triggered the barricade collapse. Logs, rocks, and debris came crashing down, momentarily burying the armored figure. Ben didn't waste the opportunity. He charged forward, Tetra's metal shard clutched tightly. The hunter erupted from the debris with a mechanical roar, but its movements were slowed by the continued cascade of material. Ben ducked under a wild swing and drove the shard toward the glowing red visor, only to be batted aside like a toy. He landed hard on the rocky streambed, the wind knocked from his lungs. The hunter advanced, weapons powering up for a killing shot. "Hey, ugly!" The shout came from above. Ben looked up to see Gwen standing on the ravine edge, hefting a large rock. She hurled it down with surprising accuracy, striking the hunter's helmet and momentarily disorienting it. Max appeared beside her, holding what looked like a cobbled-together weapon. He fired, and a net of crackling energy enveloped the bounty hunter, causing it to convulse and collapse into the stream. "Ben! Climb up! Now!" Max called. Ben didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled up the ravine slope, using roots and rocks as handholds. Tetra followed, its damaged body struggling with the climb. When they finally reached the top, Ben collapsed in exhaustion. "How did you find us?" he panted. "Followed the explosions and screaming," Gwen replied dryly. "Real subtle, doofus." "The net won't hold a Sotaragian for long," Max warned, already moving. "The outpost is just through those trees. Run." They sprinted the final distance, bursting into a small clearing where a rustic cabin stood. To casual observers, it might look like a simple ranger station, but Max headed straight for a seemingly ordinary woodpile beside it. He pressed his hand against a specific log, and a hidden panel slid open, revealing a palm scanner. "Plumber identification, Max Tennyson, badge number A14, he stated clearly. The scanner glowed green, and a section of the cabin wall slid aside, revealing a high-tech airlock. They piled inside just as an enraged roar echoed through the forest. The airlock sealed behind them, multiple layers of what looked like solid metal closing with reassuring thuds. "Will that hold it?" Ben asked nervously. "This outpost was designed to withstand a level 5 alien incursion," Max replied, moving deeper into the facility. "It'll hold." The interior was nothing like the rustic exterior suggested. Sleek metal walls, computer terminals, weapons racks, and various devices Ben couldn't identify filled the space. It was small but efficiently designed, clearly meant as a temporary base rather than a permanent installation. "Whoa," Ben breathed, spinning in place to take it all in. "This is like something out of Sci-Fi World magazine." "It's outdated by current plumber standards," Max said, "but it has what we need. Communications, supplies, and transportation." "Transportation?" Gwen perked up. "Please tell me it's not another RV." Max grinned. "Even better." He pressed a button on a control panel, and a section of floor slid away to reveal a sleek, silver vehicle that looked like a cross between a jet and a motorcycle. "Plumber scout ship. Short range, but fast. It'll get us to Mount Rushmore in a few hours." Ben's eyes lit up. "We get to fly in that? Awesome." "First things first," Max cautioned. "We need to contact Plumber Command, resupply, and make sure that Bounty Hunter can't track us when we leave." He moved to a communications console and began inputting codes. After a few moments, he frowned. "That's odd. I can't establish a secure connection. It's like something's blocking the signal." Tetra approached, examining the console with its functioning arms. "Subspace communications jamming detected. Widespread effect, covering at least 500-mile radius." "Vilgax," Max concluded grimly. "He must have deployed jammers in orbit before he left. He's making sure we can't call for help." "So we're still on our own," Gwen said, shoulders slumping. "Not entirely. We have supplies, weapons, and transportation now. We're back in the game." Max moved to a storage locker and began removing equipment, compact energy weapons, communication devices, medical supplies. He handed each of them what looked like a slim silver rod. "Neural disruptors," he explained. "Non-lethal, but they'll incapacitate most species temporarily. Point and press the red button, simple as that." Ben turned the weapon over in his hands. It felt wrong somehow, like it was meant for someone else. Someone who actually knew what they were doing. "What about Mount Rushmore?" he asked. "If we can't communicate from here, will we be able to from there?" "The Mount Rushmore base has more powerful equipment that might break through the jamming," Max said. "And it has interstellar transport capabilities. If all else fails, we can use it to leave Earth and seek help directly." "Leave Earth?" Gwen repeated, eyes wide. "As in, go to space." "Only as a last resort," Max assured her. "For now, let's focus on getting there in one piece." They spent the next hour gathering supplies and treating their injuries. The outpost had an automated medical station that healed the worst of their cuts and bruises with technology that seemed magical to Ben. Food, water, clean clothes, simple comforts that felt like luxuries after their days on the run. Tetra made use of the outpost's repair facilities, welding broken components and replacing damaged parts with plumber tech that was compatible enough to function. By the time they were ready to leave, the alien looked almost fully repaired, its movements smoother and more precise. "So what's the plan?" Ben asked as they prepared the scout ship for departure. "We fly to Mount Rushmore, call the space police, and wait for the cavalry." "That's the general idea," Max nodded. "Though I expect we'll face more bounty hunters along the way. That Sotaragian will report back to Vilgax, and he'll send more after us." "Great," Gwen muttered. "More aliens trying to kill us. Just what summer vacation needed." As Max and Tetra made final preparations for takeoff, Ben wandered around the outpost, examining the alien technology with fascination. One device in particular caught his eye, a workbench with what looked like holographic design tools and small fabrication units. "What's this?" he asked, touching a glowing panel. "Careful!" Max called out. "That's a molecular assembler. It's for creating and modifying plumber equipment." "Can it make weapons?" Ben asked eagerly. "Among other things. But it requires specialized knowledge to operate safely." Tetra joined them, examining the assembler with interest. "This unit is primitive but functional. It could be useful for creating customized defensive equipment." An idea began forming in Ben's mind. "Like what?" "Various possibilities exist. Personal shields, environmental adapters, tactical enhancers. With proper design parameters, many configurations are possible." Ben looked at the alien thoughtfully. "Could you make something that would give me powers? Like, not alien transformation, but maybe super strength or laser beams or something?" "Ben," Max warned, "plumber technology isn't a toy. I'm not trying to play with it, Grandpa. I'm trying to be useful." Ben's frustration bubbled over. "Every time we've faced these aliens, I've been basically useless. I got lucky with Vilgax, but what about next time? I can't just keep running and hiding forever." Max's expression softened. "You haven't been useless, Ben. Far from it. But I understand what you're feeling." He turned to Tetra. "Is there something you could design that would be safe for Ben to use? Something defensive rather than offensive?" The alien considered for a moment, mechanical eyes whirring. "A limited-function gauntlet device would be feasible. It could incorporate defensive capabilities without risk of molecular destabilization." "How long would it take to make?" Max asked, checking a monitor that showed the outpost's perimeter. The bounty hunter was still out there, testing the defenses systematically. "With this equipment and my current functionality, approximately 73 minutes. Max hesitated, clearly torn between the need to depart quickly and Ben's desire to be better equipped for the challenges ahead. "Please, Grandpa," Ben pleaded. "I need this." "All right," Max relented. "But we work fast, stick to simple systems, and we leave the moment that Hunter breaks through our outer defenses, finished or not. Deal?" "Deal." Ben agreed eagerly. Tetra immediately set to work at the molecular assembler, for arms moving in perfect coordination as it designed and fabricated components. Ben watched in fascination as holographic schematics took shape in the air, rotating and changing as the alien refined the design. "This will require your biometric data," Tetra explained. "Place your right arm here." Ben did as instructed, watching as beams of light scanned his arm from wrist to elbow. "What exactly are you making?" he asked. "A multifunctional defensive gauntlet," Tetra replied. "Primary capabilities will include energy shielding, basic matter manipulation, and limited propulsion assistance. So, a shield, grabber claw, and rocket boost." "Sweet." A significantly simplified description, but essentially correct. While Tetra worked, Gwen approached with a concerned expression. Are you sure this is a good idea? Strapping experimental alien tech to your arm? Says the girl who's been reading from that weird book she found in the outpost library, Ben retorted, nodding toward a leather-bound volume tucked under Gwen's arm. She hugged it protectively. It's not weird. It's a compilation of extraterrestrial cultural practices. There's some really interesting stuff in here about energy manipulation and mental discipline. Sounds boring. It's not. It's actually, she stopped, seeming to catch herself. Never mind. You wouldn't understand anyway. Ben was about to snap back when an alarm blared through the outpost. Perimeter breach in Sector 3, an automated voice announced. Estimated time to facility compromise, 15 minutes. That hunter works fast, Max observed, checking the security feed. The Soderagian had somehow bypassed the outer defenses and was now methodically cutting through a reinforced wall. Tetra, what's our status? Primary components complete. Integration and calibration remain. Estimated completion time, 22 minutes. That's too long. We need to leave now. Wait. Ben protested. Can't we hold it off somehow? Buy more time? Max considered their options. The outpost has automated defenses, but they're designed to delay, not defeat. A determined Soderagian will get through eventually. What if we give it something else to chase? Ben suggested. Like we did with Vilgax, a decoy? That could work, Gwen agreed, surprising Ben with her support. The scout ship has stealth capabilities, right? We could program the outpost systems to emit a false signal elsewhere, then slip away undetected. Max looked impressed. Not bad, you too. Let's do it. While Max reprogrammed the outpost systems to emit a false Omnitrix signature after their departure, Tetra continued working on Ben's gauntlet, its pace somehow increasing despite the pressure. Primary integration complete, it announced after a few minutes. Calibration protocols accelerated. Functionality will be limited to 72% of design capacity, but the device is operational. Good enough for me. Ben said excitedly. Tetra lifted what looked like a sleek, silver and blue bracer from the assembler. It was about 8 inches long, designed to cover most of Ben's forearm, with a circular interface on the top and various small components embedded throughout its surface. This device synchronizes with your neurological patterns, Tetra explained, carefully securing it to Ben's right arm. Think of the function you wish to activate, then make the corresponding gesture. The gauntlet powered up as it bonded to Ben's arm, glowing blue circuitry patterns appearing across its surface. It felt warm but not uncomfortable, almost like it was becoming part of him. Whoa, Ben breathed, turning his arm to examine it from all angles. How do I use it? Shield activation requires a forward arm thrust with open palm, Tetra demonstrated the motion. Gravitational manipulator, what you called grab or claw, requires a grasping motion toward the target. Propulsion assistance activates with arm extended behind you, palm down. Let me try the shield. Ben thrust his arm forward as instructed, and a translucent blue energy field erupted from the gauntlet, forming a circular shield about 3 feet in diameter. The sudden deployment knocked him off balance. Awesome, he exclaimed, regaining his footing. What else can it do? Time for a full demonstration later, Max interrupted. That hunter is through the outer defenses. We need to move now. Ben deactivated the shield with a flick of his wrist, as if he'd been doing it his whole life. The gauntlet somehow felt natural, responding to his thoughts almost before he formed them. They hurried to the scout ship as another alarm sounded. The sleek vessel was barely large enough for the 4 of them, with 2 pilot seats and a small rear compartment where Gwen and Tetra would have to squeeze in. Everybody aboard, Max ordered, taking the main pilot's seat. Ben, you're co-pilot. Watch what I do, you might need to know this someday. Ben slid into the seat beside his grandfather, trying not to touch any of the dozens of controls that covered the console. The ship hummed to life, systems activating with soft blue glows. Launching in 3, 2, 1, Max pressed a sequence of buttons, and the ceiling above them retracted, revealing a launch tunnel. The ship rose smoothly, accelerating upward. "What about the bounty hunter?" Gwen asked from the rear compartment. "The outpost's final protocol is activating now," Max replied. "It's broadcasting a false signal indicating we're headed west, and then it'll lock down completely. Should buy us some time." They emerged from the tunnel into open sky, the scout ship's engine surprisingly quiet for its speed. Within seconds, they were high above the forest, the outpost nothing but a tiny speck below. "Stealth systems engaged," Max reported. "Setting course for Mount Rushmore. ETA 3 hours." Ben stared out the viewpoint in awe as Earth fell away beneath them. They weren't in actual space, but they were flying higher than any commercial airliner, the curvature of the planet visible on the horizon. "This is incredible," he whispered. "There's a lot more out there, kiddo," Max said with a smile. "Worlds you can't even imagine." For a while, they flew in peaceful silence, the scout ship maintaining its course automatically. Ben took the opportunity to experiment with his new gauntlet, carefully testing each function under Tetra's guidance. The shield was straightforward enough, a protective energy barrier that could deflect physical objects and energy blasts. The gravitational manipulator was trickier, allowing him to attract, repel, or hold objects at a distance, but requiring fine control to avoid crushing or repelling with too much force. The propulsion system was simplest of all, a directional thrust that could enhance jumps or slow falls. "This is the coolest thing ever," Ben declared after successfully using the manipulator to lift his water bottle and bring it to his hand. "It's like having superpowers." "Primitive approximation of certain species' natural abilities," Tetra corrected. "But effective within its limitations." "Don't get overconfident," Max warned. "That gauntlet uses a lot of power. Each function has a limited duration before it needs to recharge." "How long can I use it?" "Shield projection, approximately 45 seconds at maximum intensity," Tetra recited. "Gravitational manipulation, variable based on mass of target, average 2 to 3 minutes. Propulsion, 10 to 15 seconds at full power." "So I need to use it smart, not just all the time," Ben realized. "Precisely. The device will recharge using ambient energy and your own bioelectric field, but complete recovery requires approximately 17 minutes of inactivity." It was a sobering limitation, but Ben was still thrilled. He finally had a way to defend himself and others, no more running and hiding while everyone else did the fighting. Their peaceful journey didn't last long. About an hour into the flight, proximity alarms began blaring. "Two craft approaching from Vector 227, Tetra reported, its eyes scanning a readout. "Configuration matches Koro's technology. Likely mercenary vessels." "More bounty hunters," Max grimaced, checking the tactical display. "They're on an intercept course. Our stealth systems must be malfunctioning. Can we outrun them?" Gwen asked. "Not in atmosphere. This ship is built for stealth, not speed." Max adjusted their course, diving toward a bank of clouds. "We'll try to lose them." The scout ship plunged downward, banking sharply as two angular craft appeared on their tail. Energy blast streaked past, uncomfortably close. "Hang on," Max called as he executed a series of evasive maneuvers. The ship shuddered under the strain, internal compensators barely managing to keep them from being thrown around the cabin. "Can't we fight back?" Ben asked, gripping his seat as another near miss rocked the vessel. "Defensive capabilities only," Max replied, his hands flying over the controls. "This isn't a warship." One of the pursuing craft managed to score a glancing hit, causing warning lights to flash across the console. "Starboard stabilizer damaged," Tetra reported. "Flight capabilities degraded by 27%. Max muttered something under his breath that Ben was pretty sure he wasn't supposed to hear. "We need to set down somewhere, make repairs before we lose control completely." There. Gwen pointed through the view screen at a vast rocky landscape below. Those canyons might give us cover. Max nodded grimly. Good eye, Gwen. Everyone brace for rough landing. The scout ship descended rapidly, smoke now trailing from its damaged stabilizer. The pursuers stayed right with them, continuing to fire. Another hit sent them into a spin that Max barely managed to correct. 45 seconds to surface, he announced. Engine shutdown imminent. We're going to crash. Ben asked, wide-eyed. I prefer to call it an emergency landing, Max replied with forced calm. The ship leveled out just above a deep canyon, skimming along its length before settling into a controlled crash landing on a rocky plateau. The impact sent them all lurching forward despite the safety restraints. Everyone okay? Max asked, already unbuckling to check on Gwen and Tetra in the rear. I think so, Gwen replied shakily. Functional, Tetra confirmed. Ben released his harness, wincing at a new bruise on his shoulder. What now? Those ships will be landing any second. As if to confirm his prediction, the sound of engines could be heard approaching. We make a stand, Max decided, moving to a storage compartment and retrieving several weapons. The ship's damaged but not beyond repair. Tetra, how long would you need to get us airborne again? With available materials and current damage assessment, 32 minutes minimum. That's too long to hold off 2 ships of bounty hunters, Gwen pointed out. We don't have to hold them all off, Max said. Just keep them busy enough for Tetra to work. He handed Gwen one of the neural disruptors from the outpost. You stay with Tetra, guard the ship. Ben and I will draw their attention away. Ben felt a surge of both fear and excitement. This would be his first real chance to use the gauntlet in combat. I'm ready, Grandpa. They exited the ship to find themselves on a rocky plateau overlooking a vast canyon system. The landscape was barren and red, reminiscent of Mars in the pictures Ben had seen in science class. The 2 pursuing ships were circling overhead, apparently looking for a landing spot. This way, Max said, leading Ben toward a cluster of large boulders that would provide cover. Remember your training. Don't try to be a hero, just distract and evade. Ben nodded, the gauntlet on his arm humming softly as if sensing the coming battle. They reached the boulders just as the enemy ships touched down about 100 yards away. The bounty hunters that emerged weren't like the Sotaragian, these were bulkier, with reddish skin and what looked like crystalline growths protruding from their shoulders and arms. 6 in total, each armed with wicked-looking weapons. Tetramans, Max whispered. Strong, tough, not particularly bright. Use your speed and keep your distance. The hunters fanned out, scanning the area. It wouldn't take them long to spot the crashed scout ship. I'll circle around to the left, Max said. When I fire, that'll draw most of them. You stay hidden until they're committed, then create a distraction on the right. Got it? Got it, Ben confirmed, trying to keep his voice steady. Max slipped away, moving with surprising stealth for a man his age. Ben waited, heart pounding, as his grandfather circled wide around the Tetramans. A minute later, energy blasts erupted from behind a distant rock formation, striking one of the bounty hunters and sending it crashing to the ground. The reaction was immediate. 5 of the 6 Tetramans charged toward the source of the attack, leaving one to continue searching the immediate area. Now it was Ben's turn. He took a deep breath, checking that the gauntlet was fully charged, then stepped out from behind the boulder. Hey, 4 arms, he called. Looking for something? The Tetraman whirled, its 4 eyes locking onto Ben with predatory focus. It raised its weapon and fired without hesitation. Ben thrust his arm forward, activating the shield just in time. The energy blast impacted the blue barrier and dissipated harmlessly. That the best you got? Ben taunted, trying to sound braver than he felt. The hunter roared and charged, dropping its ranged weapon in favor of what looked like some kind of power gauntlet of its own. Ben waited until the last possible moment before activating the propulsion system, launching himself sideways in a boost-assisted leap that carried him 10 feet clear of the charging alien. Landing in a crouch, he spun and extended his hand in a grasping motion. The gravitational manipulator engaged, creating an invisible force that seized a nearby rock the size of a basketball and hurled it at the Tetraman's head. The impact staggered the massive alien but didn't drop it. "Oh man," Ben muttered, backing up as the hunter recovered and charged again. This time, he tried a different approach, waiting until it was almost upon him before activating the shield directly in its path. The Tetraman slammed into the energy barrier at full speed, the impact sending it sprawling backward. Ben didn't waste the opportunity, he used the propulsion system again, this time to launch himself into a flying kick that connected solidly with the downed alien's head. The combined force of his momentum and the gauntlet's thrust was enough to finally knock the hunter unconscious. "I did it." Ben exulted, then immediately had to dive for cover as energy blasts from the other direction indicated his success hadn't gone unnoticed. 2 more Tetramans were now bearing down on his position, while the sounds of battle from Max's direction suggested his grandfather was keeping the others occupied. Ben checked the gauntlet's charge, the shield function was depleted, needing time to recharge, but the manipulator and propulsion were still operational. He'd have to get creative. Using the propulsion to leap atop a tall boulder, he surveyed the approaching hunters. They were spreading out, trying to flank him. One fired, the blast chipping stone from his perch. Ben responded with the gravitational manipulator, seizing the weapon from the Tetraman's grasp and hurling it away. The disarmed hunter roared in frustration and began climbing the boulder. Ben waited until it was nearly at the top, then used the manipulator again, this time to seize the Tetraman itself. The gauntlet strained at the alien's mass, far heavier than the rock he'd thrown earlier, but he managed to hold it suspended for a crucial moment before redirecting it toward its companion. The 2 Tetramans collided with bone-crunching force, tumbling down in a tangle of limbs. Ben's gauntlet gave a warning beep, the manipulator was now depleted too. Only propulsion remained, and at partial charge. Time for a strategic retreat, he decided, using the last of the propulsion to leap from the boulder toward the scout ship. As he landed and began running, a massive hand seized his ankle, sending him crashing to the ground. Looking back, he saw one of the Tetramans had recovered faster than expected. It dragged him backward, lifting him upside down to dangle helplessly. "Human child," it growled in surprisingly good English. "Where is Omnitrix?" "Don't have it," Ben gasped, blood rushing to his head. "Never did." The Tetraman shook him roughly. "Vilgax pays well for information. Last chance." "I already told you." A blast of blue energy struck the Tetraman from behind, causing it to convulse and drop Ben unceremoniously to the ground. He rolled clear, looking up to see Gwen standing a few yards away, neural disruptor in hand. "You okay?" she called, keeping the weapon trained on the twitching alien. "Been better," Ben admitted, scrambling to his feet. "Thanks for the save. Don't mention it. Tetra needs more time to repair the ship. Grandpa sent me to find you." A roar from behind them indicated more hunters approaching. Ben checked his gauntlet, still completely drained. "Run for it," he suggested. "Definitely." They sprinted back toward the scout ship, weaving between rock formations as energy blasts impacted around them. As they crested a rise, they saw Max engaged in hand-to-hand combat with 2 Tetramans simultaneously, somehow holding his own despite being outnumbered and outmuscled. "Grandpa needs help." Ben started toward him, but Gwen grabbed his arm. "Wait. I want to try something." She pulled out the book she'd been studying and flipped to a marked page. This text describes techniques used by Anodites for energy manipulation. "This is no time for reading, Gwen. Just watch." She took a deep breath, eyes closing in concentration. To Ben's astonishment, her outstretched hand began to glow with a faint purple light. She spoke words in a language he didn't recognize, her voice taking on a strange resonance. The glow intensified, coalescing into a sphere of energy that hovered above her palm. With a gesture, she hurled it toward the Tetramans attacking Max. The sphere exploded between them with concussive force, sending both hunters flying backward. Holy, Ben gaped at his cousin. How did you do that? Gwen looked equally shocked, staring at her hands in disbelief. I don't know. The book said Anidites can channel energy through force of will, but I didn't think humans could. Less talking, more running. Max called, jogging toward them. Nice work with that energy blast, Gwen. We'll discuss your apparent magical abilities later. Right now, we need to get back to the ship. They raced across the plateau, the remaining Tetramans regrouping and pursuing. As they approached the scout ship, they could see Tetra working frantically on the damaged stabilizer, multiple arms deep in the ship's mechanics. Status? Max asked as they reached the alien. Repairs 87% complete, Tetra replied without looking up. Engine restart possible in 4.2 minutes. We don't have 4.2 minutes, Gwen warned, pointing to the approaching hunters. They're almost here. Ben looked at his gauntlet, still recharging, only the shield partially available. Gwen seemed drained from her unexpected magical display. And Max, though impressively capable, couldn't hold off 6 Tetramans alone. We need a plan, Ben said, scanning their surroundings desperately. His eyes fell on the 2 bounty hunter ships parked nearby. If they could somehow disable those vessels, it would at least prevent pursuit once they got airborne again. Grandpa, what if we sabotage their ships, he suggested. Max followed his gaze, nodding approvingly. Good thinking. But we'd need to get past them first. Maybe not, Gwen said. Ben, your gauntlet's shield is partially charged, right? Could you use it to protect Tetra long enough to finish repairs, while Grandpa and I circle around to their ships? Ben checked the charge indicator, about 30% on the shield function. Maybe, but not for long. Long enough, Max decided. Gwen and I will move fast. Ben, if they get past you, get in the ship and seal it. Understand? Ben nodded grimly. Be careful. As Max and Gwen slipped away, circling wide to approach the bounty hunter vessels from behind, Ben positioned himself between Tetra and the approaching Tetramans. His gauntlet hummed softly, building charge, but still far from full power. How much longer? He asked over his shoulder. 3.1 minutes to engine restart, Tetra replied. Power couplings damaged more extensively than initial assessment indicated. The Tetraman spotted them and charged, heavy footsteps thundering across the rocky ground. Ben braced himself, waiting for the right moment. When the first hunter came within range and fired, he activated the shield, catching the energy blast. The shield flickered, already straining at its partial charge, but held. 2 more Tetramans joined the first, all firing simultaneously. Ben gritted his teeth, feeling the gauntlet grow hot against his arm as it struggled to maintain the barrier. Any time now, Tetra, he called. 2.4 minutes, came the maddeningly calm reply. In the distance, Ben could see Max and Gwen reaching the bounty hunter ships. They split up, each heading for one of the vessels. Max immediately began pulling components from the nearest engine, while Gwen approached the other cautiously. The shield was failing. Cracks of energy appeared across its surface as the Tetramans continued their barrage. Ben's arm felt like it was on fire, the gauntlet pushed beyond its limits. I can't hold it much longer. 1.9 minutes to restart, Tetra reported, working even faster somehow, multiple arms a blur of motion. Just as the shield collapsed completely, an explosion rocked one of the bounty hunter ships. Max had rigged some kind of overload in its power systems. The blast distracted the Tetramans, giving Ben a moment's respite. Gwen wasn't having the same success with her ship. 2 hunters broke off to intercept her, moving faster than seemed possible for creatures so bulky. Gwen, look out! Ben shouted. She turned to see the approaching danger, backing against the ship with nowhere to run. In desperation, she raised her hands, attempting to recreate her earlier energy manipulation. A flicker of purple light appeared, but nothing substantial. Whatever power she'd tapped into before wasn't responding now. Ben didn't think, he acted. Though the gauntlet was completely drained, he charged toward his cousin, putting himself between her and the advancing Tetramans. "Back off," he yelled, raising his gauntlet arm despite knowing it was useless. To his shock, the gauntlet suddenly pulsed with energy, not blue this time, but a vibrant green that spread across its surface in circuit-like patterns. Before he could process what was happening, the gauntlet fired a concentrated beam of energy that struck the lead Tetraman square in the chest, sending it flying backward into its companion. "What the?" Ben stared at his arm in disbelief. "It's never done that before." "Whoa," Gwen breathed, equally shocked. They didn't have time to investigate this new development. Max was running toward them, waving urgently. "Back to the ship," he called. "Now." They sprinted across the plateau as a second explosion consumed the other bounty hunter vessel. The remaining Tetramans roared in fury, giving chase. "Engine restart sequence initiated," Tetra announced as they reached the scout ship. "Boarding recommended immediately." They piled inside, Max taking the pilot's seat as the engines hummed to life. The ship lifted off just as the Tetramans reached it, one managing to grab hold of the landing gear. "We've got a hitchhiker," Ben warned, spotting the alien through a viewport. "Hang on," Max replied grimly, engaging the thrusters. The sudden acceleration tore the Tetraman from its handhold, sending it plummeting back to the plateau below. The scout ship climbed rapidly, leaving the stranded bounty hunters behind. "Damage report?" Max asked once they'd reached a safe altitude. "Stabilizer functioning at 62% efficiency," Tetra reported. "Sufficient for controlled flight, but maximum speed reduced by 41%. We'll have to take it slow then. Reset course for Mount Rushmore." Max engaged the autopilot, then turned to face the others. "Now, would someone care to explain what I just saw? Gwen throwing energy blasts. Ben's gauntlet firing a weapon it supposedly doesn't have." Ben looked down at the device on his arm, which had returned to its normal blue glow, all functions showing fully recharged somehow. "I have no idea, Grandpa. It just happened." "The gauntlet contains no offensive weapons by design," Tetra confirmed, examining the device with puzzled interest. "This functionality is anomalous." "And what about you, Gwen?" Max turned to his granddaughter. "That was no ordinary neural disruption I saw earlier." Gwen clutched her book protectively. "I found this in the outpost. It describes techniques used by something called anodites to manipulate mana, a kind of energy field. I was just trying what it described, and it worked. Somehow." Max's expression turned thoughtful. "Your grandmother used to talk about energy fields and life forces. I always thought it was just her New Age phase, but maybe." "Wait, are you saying Grandma Verdona was an alien?" Gwen asked incredulously. "I honestly don't know," Max admitted. "But it seems you've inherited something unusual from somewhere in your family tree." Ben was only half listening to this conversation, still staring at his gauntlet. "Tetra, could the assembler have added features you didn't program?" "Negative. The molecular structure is precisely as designed." The alien paused, considering. "However, an external energy source could theoretically be channeled through the existing mechanisms." "What kind of energy source?" "Unknown. Scan results inconclusive." Ben exchanged glances with Gwen. It seemed they both had mysterious new abilities they couldn't explain. Maybe it was coincidence, or maybe something about their current circumstances, constant exposure to alien technology, life or death situations, had awakened latent potential in both of them. Either way, he wasn't complaining. That green energy blast had saved them, whatever its source. They continued toward Mount Rushmore at reduced speed, everyone lost in their own thoughts. The ship's sensors remained clear, for now, they'd evaded pursuit. But Ben knew it was only temporary. Vilgax would send more hunters, more drones, more challenges. "How long until we reach Mount Rushmore?" he asked after a while. "At our current speed, about 5 hours, Max replied. "Try to get some rest. We'll need everyone at full strength when we get there." Rest seemed impossible with everything that had happened, but exhaustion eventually won out. Ben dozed fitfully in the co-pilot's seat, his dreams filled with green energy and alien worlds. He awoke to alarms blaring. Sitting bolt upright, he saw Max frantically working the controls as the view screen filled with the image of a massive ship blocking their path. "The Chimerian hammer," Max confirmed grimly. "Vilgax is back." Ben's heart sank. The enormous warship hung in the air before them like a malevolent cloud, its weapons ports glowing with charged energy. There was no way around it, not with their damaged engines and reduced speed. "How did he find us?" Gwen asked, joining them in the cockpit. "The gauntlet," Tetra said, mechanical eyes fixed on Ben's arm. "The energy surge during battle may have created a unique signature similar to Omnitrix radiation. So once again, he's tracking us because he thinks we have his precious watch." Ben groaned. "Great. Options, people," Max prompted, continuing evasive maneuvers that seemed futile against such a massive opponent. "We could try another decoy," Gwen suggested. "Like before." "No power source sufficient for convincing deception," Tetra replied. "And Vilgax will be more cautious after previous tactics." The Chimerian hammer's weapons systems locked onto them, targeting beams painting their small vessel. Any second now, they'd be blown out of the sky or captured. "Grandpa," Ben said suddenly, an idea forming. "We need to let them capture us." "What?" Gwen exclaimed. "Are you crazy? Hear me out. Vilgax wants the Omnitrix, right? And he thinks one of us has it or knows where it is. If he captures us, he'll bring us aboard his ship." Max caught on immediately. "And once we're aboard, we might be able to access his communications systems, powerful enough to break through the jamming. Or even better," Ben continued, "access the ship's controls directly. Maybe even turn his own weapons against him." It was a desperate plan, but no more desperate than their situation. "Intentional capture by Vilgax carries extreme risk," Tetra warned. "Survival probability below 24%. Better than the 0% chance we have if those weapons fire," Ben pointed out. Max hesitated, clearly torn. "It's dangerous, but it might be our only play." He looked at each of them. Everyone agreed. Gwen nodded reluctantly. "I don't like it, but I don't see another way." "Then let's do this," Max decided. He opened a communication channel to the Chimerian hammer. "Attention Vilgax vessel. This is Max Tennyson. We surrender." The response was immediate, a tractor beam that seized their ship, halting its flight and beginning to draw it toward the massive warship. As they were pulled inexorably upward, Ben checked his gauntlet, ensuring all functions were fully charged. Gwen clutched her book of anodite techniques. Tetra's mechanical eyes dimmed, the alien going into some kind of low-power mode to appear more damaged than it actually was. "Once we're inside," Max instructed in a whisper, "follow my lead. Act defeated, but stay alert for any opportunity. We'll likely be separated. If that happens, prioritize finding communications or control systems." The scout ship was drawn into a massive hangar bay, settling onto the metal deck with a soft thud. Through the viewports, they could see dozens of drone soldiers surrounding them, weapons aimed and ready. "Here goes nothing," Ben muttered as the ship's hatch was forced open from outside. Drone soldiers poured in, seizing them roughly and dragging them from the vessel. Ben didn't resist, though every instinct screamed at him to activate the gauntlet's shield. They were marched through cavernous corridors, the interior of the Chimerian hammer a nightmarish blend of organic and mechanical components that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. Finally, they were brought to a vast chamber dominated by a throne-like chair. Standing beside it, arms clasped behind his back, was Vilgax. He looked even more imposing than before, if that was possible, towering over the drones, his red eyes gleaming with triumph. "Max Tennyson," he rumbled, voice like grinding metal. "We meet again, so soon after your pathetic deception." "Worth a try," Max shrugged, affecting a casualness he clearly didn't feel. Vilgax's attention shifted to Ben. "And the child who rode the drone. Impressive resourcefulness, for a human." His gaze fixed on the gauntlet. "Interesting device. Galvan design, adapted to human use." "Just something I threw together," Ben replied, trying to match his grandfather's nonchalant tone. "No big deal." The warlord laughed, a sound like rocks in a crusher. "Your species' false bravado never ceases to amuse me. You now have one opportunity to provide what I seek." "Where is the Omnitrix?" "It's not on Earth," Max said firmly. "It never was. Your intelligence is flawed." "A convenient claim," Vilgax replied, stepping closer. "Yet my sensors detected its unique energy signature multiple times. And now." He gestured to one of the drones, which approached with a scanning device. It passed the device over each of them in turn, lingering on Ben's gauntlet. "Interesting. The child's primitive weapon bears trace elements similar to Omnitrix radiation." Ben exchanged alarmed glances with Tetra. The alien had been right, somehow, the gauntlet had channeled energy similar to the mythical device they were being hunted for. "Pure coincidence," Max insisted. "The gauntlet uses standard energy modulation. Any similarity to other technology is silence." Vilgax's patience had clearly run out. "I tire of these games. You will tell me what I wish to know, or watch your grandchildren suffer." At a gesture from the warlord, drones moved to separate them. Ben was dragged to one side of the chamber, Gwen to another, while Max was forced to his knees before Vilgax. "Last chance, Tennyson. The Omnitrix." Max's face hardened. "I've told you the truth. It's not on Earth." Vilgax's eyes narrowed. "Then you are of no further use to me." He turned to a drone. "Prepare the neurological extractor. We will take the information directly from their minds." This was bad. Very bad. Whatever a neurological extractor was, it couldn't be good. Ben had to act now, before they were all subjected to alien brain surgery. He caught Gwen's eye across the chamber, giving her the smallest nod. She returned it, hands slowly moving to a ready position. Then he glanced at Tetra, who remained in apparent low-power mode but whose eyes had brightened slightly, indicating readiness. Now or never. Ben activated the shield just as the drone holding him tried to attach some kind of device to his head. The energy barrier expanded violently, throwing the drone backward and creating momentary confusion. Across the chamber, Gwen's hands glowed purple as she unleashed a blast of energy at the drones restraining her. Max took advantage of the distraction to drive an elbow into the nearest drone's midsection, then roll clear of Vilgax's grasp. Tetra suddenly reactivated, multiple arms striking out with precision to disable the drones nearby. "Insolent creatures!" Vilgax roared, drawing a massive sword from his back. "Your resistance is futile." "That's what you think, squid face." Ben taunted, using the propulsion system to launch himself toward a control panel on the far wall. He had no idea what it did, but creating chaos seemed like a good start. The gauntlet's gravitational manipulator activated at his mental command, seizing the panel and ripping it free. Sparks flew as systems shorted out, and alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Vilgax advanced on Ben, sword raised. "You will pay for that, child." The warlord swung his massive blade, forcing Ben to dive aside. The sword cleaved through the metal wall where he'd been standing as if it were paper. "Little help here," Ben called, narrowly avoiding another swing. Gwen responded, hurling energy blasts that impacted Vilgax's armor with surprising force, staggering the massive alien. Max and Tetra, meanwhile, were fighting their way toward what appeared to be the main control console. "Ben!" Max shouted. "We need a distraction. A big one." "A distraction. Right." Ben looked at his gauntlet, wondering if he could trigger that strange green energy blast again. Whatever it had been, it had seemed powerful enough to at least get Vilgax's attention. He aimed his arm at the ceiling and concentrated, willing the gauntlet to channel that same energy. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, just as Vilgax recovered and started toward him again, the gauntlet pulsed with green light. The energy that erupted from it wasn't a beam this time, but a spherical shockwave that expanded outward, passing harmlessly through Ben but impacting everything else with tremendous force. Vilgax was hurled backward. Drones went flying. Equipment shattered. The very structure of the ship groaned in protest. Ben stared at his arm in shock. Okay, that's definitely not in the user manual. Taking advantage of the chaos, Max and Tetra reached the main console. The alien's 4 arms worked with incredible speed, bypassing security and accessing core systems. "Communications online," Tetra announced. "Transmitting distress signal on all plumber frequencies." "Weapon systems locked out," Max added, his hands flying over controls. "And I've set the main engines to overload. This ship is going down in about 10 minutes. Vilgax roared in fury, struggling to his feet amidst the destruction. "You dare! I will tear you apart atom by atom. Time to go." Max called. "Everyone to the hangar bay." They ran for the exit, Ben using his shield to block the few drones still functioning enough to fire at them. The corridors seemed to shift and twist as the ship's systems went haywire, lights flickering and strange organic components pulsating with increased intensity. "Do you know the way?" Gwen asked as they reached an intersection. "Left." Tetra called. "Hangar bay access 2.7 kilometers, bearing 057. They sprinted down the corridor, Vilgax's roars echoing behind them. The warlord was in pursuit, and despite his massive size, he moved with frightening speed. "He's gaining on us," Ben warned, risking a glance back. "Almost there," Max encouraged. "Just a little further." They burst through a final set of doors into the vast hangar bay where their scout ship waited, still surrounded by drones. Without hesitation, Ben launched forward on a propulsion-assisted leap, using his shield to bulldoze through the first line of guards. Gwen and Max followed, providing covering fire with neural disruptors they'd seized during the earlier battle. "The ship's damaged," Gwen reminded them as they reached it. "Can it even fly?" "It'll have to," Max replied grimly, climbing aboard and rushing to the pilot's seat. "Everyone in, now." They piled in as the hangar doors began to close, an automated response to the ship's system's failure. The scout ship's engine sputtered to life, lifting them a few feet off the deck. "We're not going to make it," Gwen cried, pointing to the rapidly narrowing gap. Just then, Vilgax appeared at the hangar entrance, his massive frame silhouetted against the flashing emergency lights. With a roar of pure rage, he charged toward them, each thunderous step bringing him closer to their fragile vessel. "Oh yes we are," Max countered, pushing the engines beyond safety limits. The scout ship surged forward, aiming for the shrinking opening in the hangar doors. It was going to be close. Very close. "Brace for impact," Max shouted as they hurtled toward the gap. The ship scraped through with a horrific screeching of metal, parts of the outer hull shearing off as they barely cleared the doors. Behind them, Vilgax's furious roar was cut off as the doors sealed completely. They tumbled into open sky, the damaged engines struggling to maintain flight. Below them, the Chimerian hammer was already beginning its descent, trailing smoke and debris as its systems failed catastrophically. "We did it," Ben breathed, hardly believing they'd actually escaped. "Not yet," Max cautioned, fighting the controls. "This ship is barely flying, and we're still 30 miles from Mount Rushmore. Can we make it? We're about to find out. The next 30 minutes were among the most tense of Ben's life. The scout ship limped along, engines threatening to fail completely with every passing mile. Max's flying skills were pushed to their absolute limit, nursing every last bit of power from the failing systems. When the iconic presidential faces of Mount Rushmore finally came into view, Ben almost wept with relief. They approached from the rear of the monument, where tourists never ventured. Max guided the ship toward what appeared to be solid rock, but at the last moment, a section of the mountainside shimmered and disappeared, a holographic concealment hiding a massive hangar entrance. They passed through the hologram and crash-landed on the hangar floor, the scout ship finally giving up as its engines died completely. Emergency systems activated automatically, lights, medical drones, fire suppression. Everyone out, Max ordered, helping Gwen from her seat. The base's automated systems will have detected our arrival. They stumbled from the wrecked ship to find themselves in a vast underground complex that dwarfed the small outpost they'd visited earlier. This was clearly Plumber headquarters on Earth, or at least a major base of operations. Whoa, Ben whispered, taking in the advanced technology, the dozens of ships in various states of repair, the weapon systems that would make any military on Earth weep with envy. Welcome to Mount Rushmore Base, Max said, a hint of pride in his voice. Abandoned officially when the Plumbers scaled back Earth operations, but still maintained as an emergency facility. It's incredible, Gwen said, eyes wide as she surveyed their surroundings. Tetra seemed equally impressed, mechanical eyes whirring as they catalogued the technology. Surprisingly advanced for Earth-based facility. Integration of multiple species technologies evident. Max led them deeper into the complex, past automated defense systems that scanned and recognized him, eventually reaching what appeared to be a command center. Holographic displays sprang to life as they entered, showing the status of various systems and, most prominently, the rapidly descending form of the Chimerian hammer. Impact in 127 seconds, an automated voice announced. Projected crash site, uninhabited forest land, 42 miles northwest. They watched in silence as Vilgax's massive warship plummeted toward Earth. The impact, when it came, sent shockwaves even their distant sensors could detect. A massive fireball erupted at the crash site, followed by secondary explosions as the ship's remaining power systems overloaded. Is he dead? Ben asked quietly. Max shook his head. Vilgax has survived worse. But he's stranded now, without his ship or most of his forces. That buys us time. Time for what? This. Max moved to the main communications console, entering a complex sequence of codes. Now that we're away from the jamming field, we can contact Plumber Command directly. The console hummed to life, emitting a series of tones as it established a subspace link. After several tense moments, a holographic image appeared above the console, a stern-looking blue-skinned alien with multiple eyes. Emergency channel activated, the alien stated. Identify yourself. Magister Max Tennyson, Earth Division, Identification Code Alpha 7 Gamma Pluto 9. Requesting immediate assistance. Vilgax has attacked Earth. The alien's multiple eyes widened. Tennyson. Your codes are decades old, but still valid. Explain the situation. Max quickly outlined everything that had happened, from Tetra's crash landing to Vilgax's pursuit of the non-existent Omnitrix to their recent escape from the Chimerian hammer. The Plumber official listened intently, occasionally glancing at someone off-screen. When Max finished, there was a long pause. Your report is consistent with other intelligence, the alien finally said. Vilgax's forces have been observed mobilizing throughout the sector. If he believes the Omnitrix is on Earth, the planet is in grave danger. We know, Max replied grimly. That's why we need reinforcements. Vilgax is temporarily disabled, but he won't stay that way for long. I will dispatch a response team immediately, the official promised. ETA approximately 9 Earth hours. Can you maintain your position until then? Max glanced at the others. We'll have to. Be advised, Vilgax likely has additional forces in orbit. Approach with caution. Understood. Plumber command out. The hologram disappeared, leaving them in silence. 9 hours. They had to hold out for 9 more hours, and help would arrive. After everything they'd been through, it seemed both an eternity and a miracle. Now what? Ben asked. Now, Max said, straightening with renewed purpose, we prepare. Vilgax won't stay down for long, and when he comes, he'll be angrier than ever. He moved to another console and activated the base's defensive systems. Holographic displays showed weapon emplacements powering up, shield generators coming online, sensor arrays extending to scan the surrounding area. Tetra, can you interface with the base systems? We need to optimize everything we have. The alien moved to a control station, extending its arms to connect directly with the interface. Systems antiquated but functional. Optimizing defense parameters. Gwen, there's a library database through that door. See if you can find more information about those anodite abilities you've been manifesting. We'll need every advantage we can get. Gwen nodded and hurried off, still clutching her book of alien techniques. What about me, Grandpa? Ben asked eagerly. What can I do? Max turned to him with a serious expression. You, Ben, are going to get some answers about that gauntlet of yours. Those energy discharges weren't part of Tetra's design, and they're obviously connected to why Vilgax's sensors keep detecting Omnitrix energy around you. He led Ben to what appeared to be a medical bay, equipped with scanning technology far beyond anything in human hospitals. A cylindrical chamber dominated the center of the room. Step inside, Max instructed. This is a full-spectrum analyzer. It'll tell us exactly what kind of energy your gauntlet is channeling. Ben hesitated only briefly before entering the chamber. The door sealed with a soft hiss, and lights of various colors played over his body, concentrating particularly on the gauntlet. After about a minute, the scan completed and the door reopened. Max was staring at a display screen, his expression a mix of disbelief and wonder. What is it? Ben asked, joining him. What did it find? According to this, Max said slowly, your gauntlet isn't generating that green energy at all. It's channeling it from you. From me? How is that possible? I don't know. But these readings are clear, there's something in your genetic structure that resonates with Omnitrix energy. It's like you were meant to have it. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying I'm part alien or something? No, Max assured him. Your DNA is human. But there's something additional. Something the scanner can't quite identify. He pointed to a section of the display where strange symbols pulsed with green light. According to this, you're generating low levels of the same energy the Omnitrix uses to facilitate transformation. But how? And why? I wish I knew, kiddo. Max placed a hand on his shoulder. But whatever it is, it's clearly powerful. Those energy discharges you've been creating are just the tip of the iceberg. With proper training, you might be able to channel it more effectively. Ben looked down at the gauntlet, seeing it in a new light. Not just a tool Tetra had built, but a conduit for something inside him, something he'd never known existed. So I have powers after all, he said quietly. Just not the way I expected. Seems that way. Max's expression turned serious again. But power always comes with responsibility, Ben. How you use it matters more than having something went wrong with this response, please try again. Please start the next chapter now. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.